Hey everyone. Um, I wanted to tell my story about how um, I stopped talking to other human beings after uh, writing one joke for a politician. I don't even know if you could call it an interaction. Because I used to write jokes. This happened in year 2018, and I used to write jokes every day um, for the news. And one day I wrote a joke for a Connecticut politician, and the police came for me, like Anne Frank in Nazi Germany. And today I wanted to sort of tell the story of how that led to now. How many years later? It was 2018. They arrested me for nothing, and it's 2016. So it was about or 2026. It was about 8 years. Yeah, it's been about 8 years now, and yeah, we'll just tell the story about how I stopped talking to like every other human being. Like people on my Facebook will kind of be wondering, like, why does he never ever interact with any other human beings of his species? And it's really all down to Connecticut politician and maybe a Connecticut police officer or two, right? Because anyway, the story begins in when I was in high school, and I got arrested for smoking weed when I was 17. I think, yeah. And then they printed my name in the newspaper even though you weren't supposed to. And that was sort of the beginning of the end between me and talking to other human beings in Connecticut and pretty much everywhere else. I was going to make this about why I stopped talking to other human beings of my species, but I the why I'm not even sure of. I just know how it happened. And here we are today. But I thought we'd tell the story today. We'll tell the story of why I stopped talking to other human beings. It's a very good explanation of how it happened, but the why I'm still stuck on. I don't even really know why. But we'll tell the story and we'll figure it out. Um, let's start with this. Every single time I've ever been arrested, which is two, I was never doing anything wrong. I was always completely innocent. And I think, now that I mention it, I think the fact that no one from Connecticut politics or law enforcement has anything to say to me after they illegally arrested me for being innocent, I think the fact that not a single one of them has anything to say to me now is why the state of politics is about to go to world war and perhaps total war. Because I'm now that I don't talk to other human beings, I'm going to probably help perpetuate it, whatever's going on. Because we're not going to have a conversation with people. So I'm basically going to work behind the scenes every single day from now on. Basically, what it's come down to is that the government is unsafe, not fit for purpose, not fit to lead, and illegitimate. Is sort of the end. This is going to be the end of this story. Nothing really happened to me personally, and that's really that was the problem for their legal case, is that I didn't do anything, and therefore nothing really happened to me, even when they tried to destroy me. But the story about how I stopped talking to other human beings and other guildies online is very interesting. How, like, even it was like after I remember when I got arrested when I was 17 for marijuana. Let me get some, by the way. It's probably why I smoke so much marijuana. But this will be a long story, and I just wanted to make an episode like this for anyone who wants to know why I never ever talk to other human beings, like pretty much as a policy now, because of a Connecticut politician and police officer or two, you know. But I just want to say that, like, I think it really is that they have nothing left to say to me after they illegally arrested me for being 100% innocent. I think it's the fact that after all these years, not one single person has had anything to say to me. That's really truly why I never ever want to talk to another human being of my species ever again. And it's sort of how it happened. Why it's happening, the why is like maybe we should do something else, but I'm pretty sure of how it happened. And that's sort of what we're going to talk about today. I don't really have a plan. It's just tell the story. Basically, one day the cops just came here while I was on a winning streak in World of Warcraft. It was exactly like the Nazis came. My older brother, who taught me everything, he always told me that it was like, he always told me about how the Nazis came to people's houses to take them away. And I never thought that it would happen to us, but I always, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, what would I do? You know, but that was my year in 2018. And really, ever since then, I don't know why, but I do know how, that I stopped talking to other human beings in a really eerie, like, why am I even doing that? I just stopped talking to other human beings. And because I'm the author of QAnon, like the real true author of QAnon, that's where we are right now. That's why they haven't perp walked QAnon, because they already failed to do it in 2018 to me. You know, as you do. Anyway, the politician's name is Jillian Gilchrist, and I wrote one joke to her because I was writing jokes every single day in politics around the world, around the whole entire earth. I used to write, and I still do actually, write jokes every single day for the news. But one day, in 2018, I wrote a joke while I was watching CTN, which is the Connecticut television show. Big mistake for me, looking for friendship there, you know. But by just writing a joke, you know what I mean? Like, I never leave the house. Throughout this story, the story is going to be, I never leave the house and the cops came, you know, for Anne Frank. That's sort of how this story goes. But I'll tell you what, I knew when they arrested me in 2018 for nothing illegally, I knew immediately then why George Washington or Ben Franklin or whoever had the freedom of speech in there, because once the government says one thing you said was illegal, it feels like every single joke you've ever written was illegal. And that was really the big problem psychologically for everyone. Yeah, I stopped writing jokes for a few years. I couldn't even write jokes. Now I'm back to it. Now that I feel like they're not coming for me anymore. But like, yeah, that's why we have the freedom of speech, because once the government comes for you once, um, the every single day for the rest of your life after that, it feels like they're coming again for no reason. And it's like this really weird psychological game that they play on you. Um, I'm a nice guy. I'm not even being mean to people either. It's like, um, I don't even really know what happened, but I think the reason I really don't talk to other people anymore is they won't talk to me. They don't have anything else. They're not apologizing. I thought when they illegally arrested me, I thought they were going to call up and apologize, because I'm a rather um I wouldn't say well known, but I'm a journalist who writes for the newspaper every single day. So like, I don't know. I just thought eventually they'd get to the bottom of it and go, "Oh my gosh, this guy writes for the newspaper every single day." Anyway, you don't have to talk to other human beings when you write for a newspaper. But I just wanted to explain that, like, the guild that I was recently in was the first guild that I've ever been in where I never really had a direct conversation um, with other people in my guild, and it's just, I don't know, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Like, I I'm solidifying this sort of strategy that we're never ever going to talk to another human being again. It's in motion. The gears are in motion, and I think politically it has an effect. I think we're actually making progress with proving the illegitimacy of the government. That the entire government is not fit for purpose, is not fit to lead. And I don't know. It's sort of kind of the conclusion we're gonna arrive to at the end of the story. But it's a great story. I never leave the house once the entire time, and then they eventually just send the cops after me. It's funny on a day like today where we were just doing anything. In fact, it's a great point that when they finally came here in 2018, I was winning pet battles and I could not lose. It's like someone at a casino when they can't lose. And that's really truly why the police came here. And that's my explanation for why they have nothing to say now. They don't really. I called the police 5 years later after they illegally arrested me. I called the Hartford Police Department, and I formally made a complaint to press charges against all of those involved to the fullest extent of the law. And we have the Epstein files now to thank for that. But yeah, and I almost said Leslie Knope. It's who is that woman in Connecticut? Anyway, it's sort of a long story. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to finish. I don't know where to end. But today we're just going to talk about that, and we'll just, instead of running first base to second base to third base to home plate, I'm just going to hit all the bases, and if I can remember anything that I forgot to say, then we'll get that said. But yeah. I didn't even really want to never speak to another human being again. I didn't really want that to happen. And it has. That is what has happened now for many, well, I mean for 8 years now. Because before we were reaching out and really disseminating my jokes to everyone around the world. And it came home to Connecticut here, and they came for me, with the Nazi officers. So I just want to say that we'll tell the story. The story is unbelievable. I mean, it's really truly the story of the real author of QAnon. So it's going to be, there's going to be so many things where you go, there's no way that the cops would just illegally do that, right? And it's like, well, they did. So we'll sort of get through to it. Let me get some weed going, and then I'll try to begin to tell the story. I don't even know how hard it is for me to tell the story, but I really don't ever want to talk to another human being ever again. And it's a thing, and like I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't want, I know it's not that I don't want to never not talk to another human being. It's just that's what's happened. That's what's happening now. That they have nothing left to say to me after all these years. It just proves that the entire government is not fit for purpose. It's dangerous and unsafe and unfit to lead. It's an illegitimate government at this point. From what I can gather from what they've said to me after illegally arresting me, after all these years, if no one has anything to say, we're just going to prove that the government is illegitimate, and then we're going to go from there. I'm just trying to find my weed, and then we'll get back to the story. I'm sweating more than I thought I would, by the way. I'm sweating way more than I thought I would, and I don't even know why. I didn't even do anything wrong. I fear that no one's ever gonna hear this, and we're just gonna keep barreling toward what is known as total war, in relation to World War Part 9 or whatever we're on. You know, there's a way that we can barrel unto total war and apocalypse, like after this. You know what I mean? Like if I just never ever talk to another human being again, I think we can make it fall like Rome. Anyway, where do I start, right? Let's tell the story. Um well, first of all, I'm an incel. This story really all begins with me being an incel who has never had sex in his entire life. And that's what the joke was about. And they sent the cops after me. So, and it was like 9 days later or something from when I wrote the joke. So like they did like a fake investigate, or like, you know, they went through the Epstein. They asked Jeffrey at this point if Jeffrey Epstein was involved in the whole thing. I'd be like, of course they were. Oh, and by the way, Jillian Gilchrist might be involved in Jeffrey Epstein's sexual, trafficking thing, because it was a joke about trafficking, and I think that she sent the cops because she was actually involved in it. And I kind of wrote the joke because here's let's tell the story. Let's tell the story. This is going to be a great story. By the way, the people who arrested me, I don't even think they heard this story. So this is going to be great when we tell the story. I'm going to say, like I already said, when I was 17 years old, I got arrested for smoking weed. That was the first time that I ever got arrested for being innocent. And then in 2018, it happened again, and it was for writing. It was for writing online. You know what I mean? One thing. Not like I kept writing and she said stop and I wouldn't stop. I wrote one joke about being an incel and trafficking before Epstein was a thing. So let me tell you the story. So we have the premise that I was already illegally arrested for being innocent when I was in high school for smoking marijuana, and I'm trying to hit this bong, by the way. That's why I can't get past that part in the story. You know? The cop was really nice to me when I got arrested for weed when I was 17. And that was the most disturbing part, is like, he was nice about it. Like, yeah, we're just out here doing Nazi shit. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. Anyway, so that was the beginning of all this. That was the beginning of my relationship with Glastonbury, Connecticut, the place that I've lived in for 40 years in a row, ever since I was born. Um, well, I mean, before that, in the school system, we already had, I was already, a weed smoker in the school system. So, I already had a tumultuous relationship with my town before that. But I come from the state where they got the judge where they had the judge who was putting kids into prison for money. I live in that state. So like I just want to say that like when people I never went to prison or jail, but like when they I was arrested, but then nothing happened, but like I just wanted to say that like there is a legitimate news story about a judge in my state who was putting kids in prison for money, like not, or just like getting them in trouble for money or something. It's a thing where I come from, like arresting innocent people in Connecticut. That's what we need to keep in mind here. I I don't really want to tell this whole story, but I know I'm going to feel good after we stop the live stream. I'm going to go, at least we told the story, Now it's in everyone else's hands. Exactly, just like my other jokes that I wrote. Once I write it, like my other QAnon drops, it's just in everyone else's hands now, But anyway, let me clear the bong and then get to it. In 2018, I was watching CTN one day, just randomly clicking through. Weed had been legalized, but it was not legal yet. So tensions were high. And, I was doing everything I could. And I had already been writing for NPR, New York Times. What are the other ones? For years before that. Basically, in 2009, I graduated in college in psychology. And then shortly after that, I began freelancing writing for the NewYorkTimes.com because you could just set up an account and write, and your comment would hit the front page, believe it or not, back in the day. So I was effectively writing for the front page of the of NYTimes.com. And then they changed that a little bit, and then we moved over to NPR. And before that, I was writing for Reddit. There was a big. I left Reddit when they banned my account. There was a big to do about an AMA. Right. It was like, what year was the AMA? Reddit. AMA controversy, yeah. What year was that? 2012? 2014? Hold on. What year was the Reddit AMA controversy? Yeah, 2015, a controversy occurred in Reddit called Reddit Armageddon. Victoria Taylor was suddenly fired. Yeah, that had to do with the banning of my account, but that's neither here nor there. I don't even know that for sure, but it had something to do with it. That's how I felt about it. But so I wrote for Reddit until about 2015, and I was also writing for NPR.org every single day, in the discuss section. And I had an account that was going to the top. They had upvotes on NPR.org in year 2015. But here's the point. In 2016, during the 2016 election between Trump and Hillary, they shut down the entire NPR.org comment section, which was run by Discuss. And DISQUIS or something. I'm still trying to get my my transcript. Even though I copied what I got, but like there was still some that I missed. But anyway, oh yeah. So I started after I graduated college. I wrote for New York Times, nytimes.com, the New York Times, and then I wrote for Reddit until 2015. But I was also writing for NPR. Oh yeah, in 2012 when Adam Lanza did Sandy Hook, that was the first time I sort of started writing for NPR.org, and it went until 2016 when they shut it down. And it was probably because of my account. In all fairness. Because I was getting my jokes upvoted way high on NPR.org. So they shut down the entire comment section for the 2016 election, and then let me get this straight. That was 2 years before they framed and arrested me in Glastonbury, Connecticut for writing. So yeah. And then after the NPR comment section got shut down, I think I just started writing jokes for just random politicians. And I would write them and send them. And I don't oh, YouTube, that's right. No, I remember now. I started writing comments for YouTube, and that's where my comments are now. I'll read you a few. So it doesn't sound like I'm making the whole thing up. I'll read a few jokes that I've written this week and last week or whatever. Recent jokes I've written. I'll read a few. I'll read a few now. By the way, shout out YouTube. The end of this story of QAnon writing online and then getting banned from everywhere and arrested, it ends with, and then YouTube lets me comment now. And like, it's kind of interesting how that's the story. Let's see here. Go to comment history. All right, let's see. Okay, so there's an article here. This is a good example of a joke that I wrote. Like, there's an article here called "Charlie Kirk Freedom Statue to Debut in New York City's Center of the Universe," and the joke that I wrote was, if it's not a metal statue, then it's taxidermy, because he used a boat shell or something on it. This guy, there's an article here, why scientists are worried about a $72 million Tyrannosaurus Rex sale. And they talk about, and during the news article, he says something funny, and I quote him back. I said, "What do you got at the Australian Museum of Pieces that are really important?" Because that's what he said. It was a flub the way he said it, so I was just making a little joke about how he said it. And that's why the Connecticut politician Jillian Gilchrist sent the police after me, because she didn't like my joke, and my jokes are rather offensive toward people. Like, they're meant to kind of hurt your feelings, and that's why she sent the police after me. Most of the jokes aren't funny. That's why it's not fair to ask an artist what his art means, because like most of the jokes you write aren't funny. But but the thing is the only way you get funny jokes is you write the ones that aren't funny. This is an article called, this is with what's his name? I'm looking at his face. I can't remember his name. Dr. Phil. This is a story about Dr. Phil. It says, do the new Pentagon UFO files point to a cover-up? Dr. Phil thinks so. And the joke that I wrote, so they got him to do something on aliens, and the joke I wrote under it is, somebody has to be aliens guy. You know? Oh, this is a funny one. This is a really funny, hold on. This is a really funny one, I think, that I wrote. I wrote a really funny joke about Ann Widdecombe, and I hope this is it, because I wrote a few. Yeah, here it is. This is a great joke about a politician who just died called Ann Widdecombe in England. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the thing is, like, basically, if people in England could send the police after me for my jokes, they would. But what happened was I wrote a joke for someone that I live near, and they sent the cops. So that's sort of what happened. And then everyone else's story and everyone who knows me, they're all just, I don't know what they say, but that's what happened. Anyway, this is a joke I wrote about Ann Widdecombe. This is hilarious, if you know who she is. This was 6 days ago that I wrote this for New York Times. I wrote this for GB News. It's a 24-hour news channel that they have in England. The joke that I wrote was, the thing people should say about Ann Widdecombe now that she's dead. I didn't write that, but this is a story about how she's gone, and I wrote, the thing people should say about Ann Widdecombe is that when she was giving an over-the-top angry speech of anger in front of everybody during politics, she was also like that at home too. It wasn't an act. She was always being herself up there, punching the air as she spoke. Quite frankly, I cannot get over the punching of the air when she gave a speech, and that's why they call it a punchline for people like me and her. Because she famously would give these Catholic homophobic speeches about, and she literally would punch. We got to play the if you don't know who she is, you got to see this. Dude, that joke is devastating for their case against me in the court of law. Do you know what I mean? Like, I write jokes like that I've written jokes like that every single day of my life since I graduated college, more or less. And basically, I wrote one joke to the wrong person, and they sent the police after me 9 days later. And she no response. I'd never talked to this person, and so let me tell the story. So that's a great setup to, like, okay, he's a legitimate joke author, and that's what QAnon is, by the way. Just so you know, half of QAnon is written in jokes to be stolen by people like, Joe Rogan, etc., comedians. They steal the QAnon drops, and then it gets out. But here's the point. You know what I mean? Like, QAnon started as like a joke about like people's aunts and stuff. It's very to form for QAnon to have the drops hidden in jokes, to be stolen, because I wrote them. But here's the point. Now we can tell the story. Let me take this off. I don't need this. Now we can tell the story. I just have to make sure my sound is good. Hold on. Let me do a sound check before I get into the story now. Just quick sound check. That's not it. There we go. Yeah, check 1, 2. I think we're good. Okay. I want to roll a joint, but we're gonna resist. I'm just gonna hit the bong. All right. So now you've got a taste of the jokes that I've written every single day for how many years now? We're going to like 17 years in a row, so more or less. It really, like, you can write a joke once a week, and then you get up to once a day, and it's like, when did I transition? I don't even know. All right. So we have the premise set. We have the context set. I'm writing jokes every single day since I graduated college, online for any newspaper, anywhere, everywhere. One day, I'm watching. So I never watch any TV shows, but I do watch CNN, MSNBC, which is MSN Now, or MS Now, and CNBC business television, and Fox News. So like I only watch 4 news channels on the TV ever. And you can, if you're a regular viewer of this show, you'll see me throw them on. I used to watch another one called CTN, and it was the Connecticut Broadcasting show, and that's really where this all started. Basically, if I was someone who would sue people, we could sue them or something. You know what I mean? Like for this whole thing. But I don't even really sue people. I always work extrajudicially. You know. You know how I always say I'm from Digital Utopia every time I sign off on the live stream? That's because I grew up and come from a place where we do trial by combat and we literally fight each other to solve these things. And I'm rather one of the best, by the way, at fighting. But here's the point. Sorry, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So I'm watching CTN all the time. Just all the time. Just, you know, if you watch this live show, you watch me watch the news. As long as we're not playing a video game or trying to fix the sound system, I put the news on, and that's it. And when we're out of news on the TV, I go to international live news online. So one day in 2018, oh, I forgot. In 2018, I started a podcast called The Ingot House with my brother and my mentor, who I went to high school with, lived down the street. Every month, we did a show called The Ingot House. And then, after a while, it was just me. The first few episodes, it was those two guys with me. And then after a while, it was just me. And the show kind of like, it got dark to a dark place. There were warnings for like World of Warcraft, you know, Blizzard, and like, you got to watch what you guys are doing. You know what I mean? There were warnings in the show because I was in the game and it was like, look, this is happening. This future is going to get dark. And so I was sort of kind of it was very foreboding and warning of people that like things are bad in World of Warcraft as far as management. So in 2018, yeah, I created the podcast and I was doing a show every month and until the cops came. You know what I mean? Like that's how this went more or less. There's a lot of nobody, because I don't talk to anyone anymore. Nobody really told me what happened. Nobody, the players involved in the whole arrest and everything and the framing of me being innocent, like Anne Frank. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to remember it because it was the arrest of QAnon, you know, like. But the point is, the theory here is that if we can't acknowledge that I'm QAnon and go back through the illegal arrest of me when I was innocent, then the nation will never improve and will death spiral unto whatever's about to happen apocalypse-wise. By the way, the word otherwise is a very important word in the joke. The word otherwise was more or less misinterpreted in the joke. And that's sort of, it was. And you know what's interesting about that? The reason I used the word otherwise in the joke is because of the poem called, it was because I took a women in poetry class in community college, and some woman wrote a joke. Some woman wrote a poem called, and title was Otherwise. Right? Who is it? Who wrote the poem Otherwise? Who wrote the poem Otherwise? Jane Kenyon, right? The woman who had me arrested, she probably loves her. Anyway, that's why I put Otherwise in the joke, is because of her poem. It's because I liked her poem back in college, and I remember writing the joke. Oh yeah, by the way, when I wrote this joke, I was rolling around in my bed ill. I had a terrible fever, and I was like, I remember I was so sick. I was rolling around in my bed. It was like someone was trying to kill me with anthrax or something. Like it was. I feel like Jeffrey Epstein. If you told me right now that months before they set you up and arrested you in 2018, Jeffrey Epstein was hot on your tail, you know what I mean, trying to kill you, I'd be like, oh, that's why I was deathly ill when this happened, you know. Anyway, shortly after, just so you know, fun fact: shortly after they arrested me in 2018, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, and his court he died. He died in court. We think he's in the witness protection program per the president of the United States. But he allegedly died in prison while they were deciding what to do with my court case. Just so everyone knows that. And who's the woman? I'm sorry. Who is the woman in the Epstein files from Connecticut? Leslie Groff is this like major player in the Epstein files in Connecticut, where I live, the state where I live. So just keep that in mind, that in the background of everything I'm saying might be Jeffrey Epstein himself in Connecticut and Leslie Groff in Connecticut. So just everyone just keep that in mind. The Hartford Police Department, the Glastonbury Police Department, Jillian Gilchrist, Leslie Groff, Jeffrey Epstein. So everyone just keep that in mind. That I don't have the proof. You know what I mean? They would have murdered me by now if I had the proof that they were involved in Epstein. But there's this subtle in the background chance that everything that happened to me has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Anyway, let's tell the story without further ado. So I said in 2018 I created my podcast, and everyone in my friends, all of my friends and family in Glastonbury, Connecticut, were horrified that I had a voice. And then it must have been October, right? If I'm remembering, it was like October 2018. I'm feeling great, by the way. I'm feeling fucking fantastic. And when I get fantastic, I start writing jokes. You know what I mean? And they're funny. And they're funnier than they should be. They're not as funny as they should be. You know what I mean? But like, I was in a great mood. But I was sick. And here's the thing is, before I went to sleep, I wrote this joke. But here's the point. One day, and if I remember, you try to remember everything you can. One day in October 2018, I was watching CTN, and I think it was actually online. I think I was actually watching it on ctn.org or whatever. Normally I catch it on the TV, but I think I was actually on the website. And that's why it's like they're a suspect too. Like there are so many suspects in this whole entire story. But the reason the nation is in the state it is right now in 2026 is because nobody ever said anything to me after they illegally framed me and illegally arrested me for being innocent. Nobody ever really acknowledged it. And I think that's where we are with the Epstein files right now. Like right now, that's where we are. And it's sort of like I should have made this video a long time ago. But that's what fear does. When someone arrests you for your speech in the land of George Washington and Ben Franklin, that's what fear does, is it feels like what I just said right now they could come and arrest me for. Logically in your head, as a brain, as a human being, you know what I mean? Like as a calculator, I shouldn't feel that way. But as a human being with a brain in his head, you get this feeling like they're coming for you again for anything you say, because the original thing was innocent and everything you say after that is innocent. And it just feels like every single second of the day they could come for you again. And that's why we have the freedom of speech. I just wanted to emphasize that is a great logical explanation for why we even have the freedom of speech, is because of the feeling you get as a writer If I wasn't a brilliant writer, a genius writer, none of this would matter. But like, it's the feeling you get after you've written one thing innocent and gotten in trouble. Now it's not just some things you say. Anything you say, you could be arrested for. And I never want to talk to another human being ever again. You know. There's something, but I never, I didn't want that to happen. You know, like. Yeah. And then when it's all commercials, we come over here and head on overseas for the news, you know? But, okay, so where were we? Don't get lost here. Where were we? We jumped forward and backward. Okay. So one day in 2018 in October, I'm flipping through. Not flipping. Oh, no, I think I was flipping through stories on CTN on my computer. Because the TV and the computer are very, like, down here. You can get them crossed. So, like, sometimes when I remember it is actually on the computer. So here's the thing. One day, I don't even know if this was a recent video that went up or one that was a rerun. I don't even know. I was sick, and it was the last joke that I wrote before I went to bed. It's Jillian Gilchrist. I don't know how I got. I know how I got that. I was on CTN, the website, just going through stories, and they either played a rerun or a recent one. It must have been recent because she was recently elected. I later found out. I didn't recognize her. What's interesting is I didn't recognize her because I knew all of the politicians in Connecticut. And so I was sort of writing a joke to her. It was the first joke I was going to write to her. So it was like, I don't know. I think I was trying to be funny. But here's the point. I see this person who's Jillian Gilchrist. She is in a row of... I can remember it in my mind. She's in a row of, I see on CTN, on the internet, she's in a row of chairs, and she's the only person sitting in a row of empty chairs in like a, you know, in the official, on the floor of, you know, where they, whatever. And she's doing a story about human trafficking. And that's when I write a joke about me being an incel and human trafficking. And so here's the thing. I see her sitting there with... This is so important to the story, by the way. I don't even know if anyone involved knows this, but this is a really important detail. I choose people who I write jokes for. And I remember specifically the way I chose her to write this joke for is she was sitting in a row of chairs at the, you know, in the, I want to call it rotunda, but it's the, you know, it's the circle of desks that they do government at. She was sitting there. She had no one in any chair near her, just in the middle, center frame, like Kubrick, by herself. Just reading. I don't know if she was reading from a paper or not. It feels like she was reading from a paper. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna make a joke. Because it didn't look wildly successful, whatever she was saying. It looked like she was totally alone and totally out of touch and needed a joke from a genius author like I am. Every single day I write jokes for years and years and years. She sort of needed one, you know, here. I could sense, I have a feeling, I have a sense, like, as someone who's very alone, I have a sense when someone is totally alone on the television, you know, it's like, I don't know why I felt like I was helping by writing this joke. Almost every joke I write has kind of a feeling like we're going to help people. We're either going to help people figure something out or we're going to help them laugh, you know, so like, anyway, before I get lost in the story. So that's why I was going to write this joke. let me not forget any important details here. And then what? And then, yeah, I wrote the joke about being an incel and human trafficking. I was very sick. I was rolling around in my bed that week. I knocked on my dad's door at night and I said, if I need help, I need you to, bring me to the hospital. Cause I was like, I don't know what it was. It was a chest thing and I couldn't breathe. I remember I took some weed edibles that I made and I couldn't breathe. I was rolling around in my bed. But I thought like if I got to take some weed edibles while I was sick, but like it made me almost like die. It was wild. If you told me right now someone poisoned me with anthrax or something that week, I'd be like, oh, that's what it was. Like that's how bad it was. Like I've never been sick like that where I thought I was going to die. Anyway, that happened that week. And so I was getting better. I was like on the mend. You know how you're sick for like a week after this sickness was like 2 or 3 weeks with the week where you're kind of okay. When I wrote this joke, I was kind of okay, just getting better. The cops who came for us probably got sick too, if I had to guess. That's how like just almost better I was. So like, was it the perfect joke that was it perfect? Did I do it perfectly? No. Was I sicker than I've ever been in my life that week? Yeah. But do I write jokes every single day? Yes. Even if you're sick? Yeah. So here's the point. Before we get lost. Okay, so there's premise. She's on the screen, totally alone. Oh yeah. And then I look her up and get her email and email her the joke. And that was the part where my mom was like, she could get you for stalking. And I was like, yeah. For 2 seconds, for 3 seconds, however long it took for my browser to load. I just put her name in and it's like, oh, there she is, and sent her the joke. So allegedly, I think that's where everyone thought that I was stalking her. But here's the point. I think what actually was going on is that she actually really, truly did know. What's her name? I have a feeling she knew Leslie Groff and Jeffrey Epstein in real life in 2018. Jillian Gilchrist, the woman who had me arrested. I have the strangest feeling that she's actually involved in this court case. And by the way, it's a cannibalism. I mean, they were literally, this is cannibalism that Epstein, it was sexualized cannibalism that Leslie Groff and Epstein are in trouble for. It's basically the worst crime of all time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they might execute, I'm not joking when I say they might conduct an execution of Jillian Gilchrist, depending on how involved she is in Epstein throughout this whole court case. Because as I said, every single person in this story is in major legal jeopardy right now to this very day, including the Epstein files. Including the police officers, including everyone. Every single person is a suspect as far as I'm concerned. And I'm a great journalist, by the way. I'm a great I'm sort of a profound investigative journalist. And it's not just for me, Okay, so I go to bed. I remember it pretty well because, they arrested me for it. So, they arrested me for it 9 days later. I think it was 9 days later, right? Yeah, 9 days later, they come for me. And you know what I was doing? I was winning pet battles in World of Warcraft one after the other. And let me explain to you. This is so deep state World of Warcraft. You got to follow me on this one. But here's what happened. I have this thing called the Vampiric Bat. I think that's what it's called. Vampiric Batling. You could only get it in Karazhan, and it was a long time ago, and you can't get it anymore. And so it's one of the ultra rarest pets, and it was totally OP. And so really, me and only a few other people on Earth could run this pet battle team of pets. And so that day, 9 days later, after I wrote this joke, yeah, and so I've never talked to Jillian Gilchrist. I don't know who she is. We never spoke. To this day, we've never really spoken. Like, I left her a message, and I left the Hartford Police Department a message. But yeah, we haven't really spoke ever. And that's what I mean by, like, the government is illegitimate, like, not fit for purpose. Like, you are not fit to lead anymore. Like, that's really what I mean by it. Like, if years later they figured it all out and they did the Epstein files and found out that Eric Carpenter is the author of QAnon, and they can't, and somebody said something by now, somebody apologized at least by now, maybe we would be in a different spot. But we are not. We got one viewer right now, and it's me or something. You know what I mean? Like, all right. I'm forcing laughs out because it's it needs a forced laugh. Okay, what other details? Let's get everything out. Let's get everything out here. So, okay. So I'm sicker than I've ever been in my life that week, rolling around in my bed. Dad, you got to bring me to the hospital if I can't breathe anymore. He was like, "Whatever." It's so funny how my mom and dad were like, "Whatever." So I'm on the mend and I'm flipping through CTN. I see this person sitting all by themselves in a row of chairs. That's what I was trying to say. Like, if she had more people, what's the funniest thing? The weirdest thing is, like, if she had anybody sitting near her, I wouldn't have even written the joke. That's who needs a joke, is the woman sitting all by herself in the middle of the chairs and no one near her. Trust me. As a joke writer, that's who needs a joke. And the fact that she was on TV and I'm her audience is just unexcusable. That they did that to me. It's the first rules of throwing tomatoes at the stage is like, I don't care what I say. I'm the audience and you're on TV, and that's show business, right? It's showbiz, right? Anyway, I'm not an email. By the way, what you need to know about me is I've never used email in my entire life. I'm 40 years old. I was born in 1986, and I am young enough to have missed caring about email. Even though my nickname was email when I was 14, I wasn't allowed to email anybody. My parents are very strict. Now, that's not true, but like, I didn't even care about email. I remember the first time I cared about email when AOL Instant Messenger was a thing in the 90s. And then by year 2000, I was done with email because you could just find me in game. Just so you know, I've spent my life on the internet, on computers, in the video game. And when in year 2000, I started playing Ultima Online and never stopped every single day. So if you needed to find me, you just message me in game. You can find me in guild. You know what I mean? Like, it's really important to know that I have never really regularly checked my email or used it, except in middle school when they sent me Jeff Foxworthy's "Are You a Redneck?" That was the first email I ever got and laughed at. But like, I am telling you, by year 2000, we were done. And still to this day, I don't really check my email. Like, I'm better than I used to be, but like, I always needed email. My email is named after my World of Warcraft character, and that's actually gonna come up when the cops are talking to me, by the way. The last thing I said to the cops when I left after they came here was, "Lord Erickson isn't even real," just so you know. And then I walked out the door and probably was almost shot by the police car who was waiting in front of my house. Because I walked out of my house so fast. Anyway, let's tell the story, and we'll tell it. Because this story gets, I don't know. It makes me sick saying it. It's not a good sign. As a player, as a vicious player in the video game, I'm a very world famous vicious player killer murderer. So like when you make me feel sick when I'm telling my own story, it's not good. It's not good. But so here's the point. Anyone who really fights me in the video game loses and dies. So I just want, it's another, that's one of the reasons I don't check my email regularly is I used to be constantly fighting people in combat. So it's important. It's not important, but it's like, oh, that's what it is. And not even just good at it fighting, but famous, like a famous murderer, player killer. You know, like, and they named Lord Erickson. You know, so like it's got facets. This jewel has many facets, which light reflects through and shines off of. The author of more or less, I am the author. I'm QAnon. I'm the QAnon everyone's been looking for. But what's funny is that in 2018 they arrested me and had it all covered up, and that's sort of why we don't know who QAnon is to this day. You don't have to believe that, by the way, and I'm going to stop talking about QAnon, but just keep in mind that there's good reason to believe that we're talking about QAnon story. It's not just me. Because I am QAnon. It's not important to this story at all because QAnon was not a thing when they arrested me in 2018. Well, it was actually. Do you know what? That was part of the reason why I wrote the joke. Let me explain. There's Q, which is me, and then there's QAnon, which is the owner of 4chan, who basically was the only newspaper brave enough to print my drops. You can think of 4chan and QAnon, the account guy, you can think of him as my newspaper editor, but I'm Q, the where the info comes from. The Q over there in combustion engineering. Like the Q. I always say I'm QAnon, but technically I'm Q, the author of the drops, who QAnon from 4chan quotes. Combustion Engineering is a company that my dad worked for that does thermonuclear missiles and stuff. Nukes might not be real, but bombs with radiation in them, just because they're mean, that's real. And basically that Q over there is like a matchstick with the flame, and the flame's going into the intake. And if you look at it, you know, like that, it looks like a gauge or something. You see how this looks like the pressure gauge? It looks like the pressure gauge on. You see how that looks like a pressure gauge with like a red zone on it, like this, like one of these, like one of these. See? It's like the pressure gauge. There. Yeah, famously, nuclear reactors can't have too much pressure in their gauges like that. And you see how that's like a matchstick, and the flames going on the intake. It's Combustion Engineering. They make missiles like Hellfire missiles, Tomahawk missiles. It's a company in Connecticut that my dad worked for. That's why we have this. But the Q on this represents the Q clearance. Okay. But in 2018, the word incel wasn't a thing. In fact, the joke that I wrote about being a virgin and human trafficking in 2018, I actually was trying to say the word incel. And what's interesting is after my illegal arrest in 2018, the word incel became a thing. That was a word I was trying to use in the joke to make it funny, but the word didn't exist yet. So, and, by the way, I remember one of the reasons I said, let's write this human trafficking joke is because I heard about this really obscure story, about sort of Epstein kind of thing. And I was like, this is like topical. Like I can get in on the topical market here. Even though I'm not making money, there's like a market or a niche. We can get in on the topical niche here. It's sort of why I sent it, this is, people are talking about this more or less. Unbeknownst to me, the original Q drops were written by me years ago, and then what's going on is 4chan is printing the story, and that's how QAnon comes from Q, who is me. It's not really, unless it was the reason they arrested me, it's not important. But I think it was. I think ultimately, it seems, I don't know. We're gonna stop talking about QAnon for now, though. Just whether it's me or not, or whether that's why they arrested me or not in 2018, and whether we can't find it out. It's swirling around over here. I haven't put my finger on it. Okay, so moving beyond who I am and now to what happened. Yeah, so it's the last joke. I go to sleep. Yeah, there's so many important tiny details. This is why trials go on for like years, because there's so many tiny details. I go to sleep around the clock. I just go to bed whenever I feel tired and then wake up whenever, because I've never had a real job, so I never have to get up at any certain time. I don't have any kids, and I'm an incel. I don't have a relationship. So I just go to bed and wake up whenever. So when I wrote this joke was in the middle of the night. It must have been 3 in the morning, I'm guessing, is how bad it was reacted to. But it was the last joke that I wrote before going to sleep that night. I remember writing it, and then it was literally I don't go to bed at any time, and I stay up past 24. Those commercials, non-24 sleepers or whatever. For some reason, I stay awake for 30. No, my sleep cycle is 30 hours long. It's not 24 hours long. I don't stay awake for 24 hours or 30, but I can and have. But I'm just saying that my sleep cycle takes 30 hours to complete. That's how I stay up, because my life is so awesome. And doing drugs is so fun, marijuana. I'm never tired. I never wake up and I go, oh my God, I gotta get up for work. Every time I wake up and I'm tired, I roll over and go to bed. So it's very just go to sleep whenever you're tired. And literally the last thing I did, I don't even think I brushed my teeth. I wrote a joke and powered everything down like I always do, which takes a long time, but I do it every day because I have computers. I didn't have this many computers, but, you shut down. I specifically remember it was the last thing I did before going to sleep that day. So it means that I was awake a long time, and I was recovering. Like I said, it's so interesting how I'd never been sicker in my life earlier that week. It's very, it's so weird. So weird. I feel I don't know. I just wish, how there's things you wish you knew? I wish I knew if someone was trying to poison me that week or something. That would be great to figure out. If we knew someone was trying to poison me, then these people are in trouble. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It felt I was so sick. It felt like I had been poisoned. Anyway. The thing is, though, I did make myself edible weed and got worse. So I think it was the edible weed. But I really had never been that sick. You know what it was? It like, you know how you get cotton mouth when you do weed? It like dried out my lungs and I like couldn't breathe for a few. I remember rolling around in my bed and I eventually got up and went to my dad's room and I was like, "Dad, if I have trouble out here, I need to go to the hospital." And I remember my mom and dad were just like, "Whatever." It's just a tiny. That's who my parents are. It's not really an important detail, but like, what I remember of it was that. Anyway, so 9 days goes by since I wrote that joke in 2018, and I'm winning on World of Warcraft. Like I said, I had the vampire battling. I have this pet battle. I have this pet battle team that is undefeatable. I could not lose. And this is what I mean by World of Warcraft. Like, this is deep World of Warcraft. Let me explain. People sell accounts on World of Warcraft for money, even though they shouldn't. So they need to make a character level, beginner to max level. And they need to do that all day, constantly, and that's their way they make money. What happened was pet battles is like the most simplistic way to get the most amount of experience if you never lose. If you're losing, it's not great XP. So, and Epstein might have something to do with Blizzard, and so this story basically goes to the people who made the most real life cash for selling accounts in World of Warcraft had me arrested that day because I came up with a pet battle combo that could not lose. And I didn't lose that whole day until the cops came. It was the only time I've ever played pet battles where I never lost. And I was like, it wasn't just that day. It was like the day before that and maybe a little before that. I bought a rocket chicken. I remember I was trying to get every chicken pet in the game, and I bought a rocket chicken for a lot. And I don't know. I remember I fought my mentors. I pet battled my mentor's middle brother. He was the middle brother of his family, my mentor. We were through the guild and I fought him, and he had the best combo in the game. And I beat him with my combo. Because I was like, look at my I was trying to show it off. I was like, hey, mentor's brother, come over here. Let me do a pet battle with you real quick. I was showing off. But here's the point. Like, that whole day, when the cops came at 8 p.m., showed up. Oh, no, I remember. They called. Right. That was right. So, I was winning all day in World of Warcraft until we get a call from the police department. I am telling you right now that there are gold sellers in World of Warcraft who have Blizzard ties or something, or like there's behind the scenes guys, or you need to understand that the people who sell World of Warcraft characters and make them through pet battles like that they can't lose. They run a cartel. Like there will be, you could go through people's phones with a federal grand jury indictment, etc., because I'm QAnon, and literally, back trace it. You know what I mean? But like, you know what I mean? Like the encrypted, apps or whatever. WhatsApp can hand that over, when it's QAnon and stuff. I'm telling you, I can almost guarantee you that the World of Warcraft Blizzard cartel had something to do with this. That was literally like who sent the police. But like, that's what's interesting is that, what's her name? Leslie Groff. She's a resident of New Canaan, Connecticut. Worked as Jeffrey Epstein's executive assistant for 18 years in a row. Yeah, that, like, someone like that. Like, I don't know, 10,000 times. Yeah, it's mentioned 10,000 times plus. Like, I don't know. I just that's why they came here. Like it was 9 days after I wrote the joke, so like I don't know what everybody. That's what I mean by like. That's why the court. You need to understand that the court system doesn't want to get to the bottom of this. They don't want anything to do with the bottom of what happened to me. I don't know. I can see the looks on everyone's faces on the news today. I don't think anything's going to improve. I don't think after I make this video and explain everything, even then, I don't think that from what we've seen so far from Nazism in America in 2026 and before, I don't think we're going to see anything. We're just going to have this video now. You know, like. But by the way, I do correspond with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the U.S. Supreme Court. You know what I mean? Like, and not informally. Like they don't even know it's me, more or less. But like, they're just trust me when I tell you that as a writer for newspapers, once you write for a newspaper every single day for a few years, if you're good enough, you'll have the ear of a Supreme Court justice. And I just wanted to explain that, like, other than that we're not seeing much. Like, don't expect to see much from the Connecticut police departments or whatever. But like, the U.S. Supreme Court, absolutely, they're gonna have something to do with this eventually. But I just wanted to explain that, like, lower courts want nothing to do with what happened to me. But there is a supreme. I do. For some reason, sometimes what I write for the newspaper gets in and out of the U.S. Supreme Court. That's all I can tell you. Like we're not pen pals, like correspondents, but like I know how to write the president. I know how to write the U.S. Supreme Court. I know how to write, the King of England. You just have to talk to the right newspaper, and they don't say, oh, here's this guy's name, and that's what he said, and he wants you to know this. No, they steal what I said, and without telling whomever I'm talking to that it's me, they give you the information. So, like, yes, I have a pipeline more or less to the U.S. Supreme Court and the president if we need it. But other than that, law enforcement and lower courts want nothing to do with anything because it's all deep state at this point, like. That's my take on it. That's why we haven't heard anything. We can't figure it out. No one knows who QAnon is, because we do know who it is, but nobody cares, like it's kind of like that. I don't know. I don't know why I keep looking over the news for answers. Okay, let's get back to the story. Okay, so I'm non 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many tiny details that, like, I should tell you, but not super important. But, long court cases that go on for years, you get to the bottom of it. And, okay, let me just let's get this story on the road here. Okay, so World of Warcraft cartel. Yep. Undefeatable team that no one has ever seen before, that no one knows about. You know what I mean? Like, these guys probably thought I was cheating because no one's ever heard of it. They don't know I'm a genius. You know what I mean? Like, oh, and by the way, I was winning on my orc. I wasn't Fire Majory Guru because I'm a famous World of Warcraft. I'm a world famous. In 2009, I forgot to tell you, this is a super important, and by the way, I'm on Fire Majory Guru YouTube right now. We're live on Facebook and Fire Majory Guru YouTube. In 2009, I became a world famous World of Warcraft player. Perhaps the best. An arena's arena. Like, there's this thing called Arena Junkies. I was famous on it. I made famous videos, and I was the biggest YouTuber in my college class in 2009, and nobody cared. Nobody knew it was me, and nobody cared. But that's one of the reasons why we can't tell the news who I am, because the story starts, oh yeah, you guys remember that fire mage from World of Warcraft who was world famous? Yeah, it's him. Yeah, from 2009. You know what's interesting? Asmongold, the most popular World of Warcraft streamer, his assistant slash friend, McConnell, messaged me when they recreated WoW Classic, and they said, oh yeah, you were an inspiration to us when we started out, and like we kind of stole ideas from you and stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, but yeah, he's the dude said that to me, and I appreciated it. I should have said, oh, I'll never forget that. You acknowledged me, because that's that's true. But, okay, so World of Warcraft cartel, they send the cops. Oh, yeah, no. The police call. And here's what's interesting. Now we get into my mom and dad, and they're listening to me right now, and they're shuffling around. Now we get into who QAnon's mom and dad are. Because if really the reason the cops came was because a father can't talk to his son. Because my father didn't really know his father. Like, and in fact, my mother says his father is someone else. He doesn't even really know who his father. He thinks his father is someone else, but like his mom might have been a total whore. It's kind of how it went. Like, he had a father figure, but we're not sure he knew his real father. But he might have been his real father. Like. Anyway, long story short, my father can't talk to his sons. And so the way this story goes is like the cops call. By the way, remember when I said I never use email? I never use the phone. Yeah, this is one of those things where like the judge hears it and then he goes, he never uses email and he never uses the phone. And you just think Ted Kaczynski, but like, I'm just young enough to never, this is what Gen Z is called. This is where Gen Z is headed, right? Like, I don't know how to break it to you, but like, it's the exact same explanation. I never leave the house. I'm out in Ultima Online every single day of my life. I never use email. I never use the phone. And then I turned 15, you know what I mean? And then 16 and 17, and then I turned 18, like, that's who I was from the beginning. It's so funny because, like, when you grow up on the internet, nobody older than you is like thinks you'd never use email. You think your whole life is email, but it's like no. You guys are all older than me. Your life is email and the phone. I'm actually in game if you need me. Like. But here's the point. This is details too. Man, if you want the TMZ behind the scenes live, we can't take it. We're going to say it. We can't take it back. I'm going to tell you the details. The first thing you need to know is my father and mother are psychopaths. My father's a stalker psychopath. My mother is a pathological liar psychopath. I have a psychology degree. That's why I have the degree on the wall from the University of Connecticut Storrs branch, the main campus on Storrs. That's why I graduated with psychology, is because I have mentally ill parents, and those are the people who take my phone calls. Like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but that's who answers my phone calls when one comes for me. And nobody ever calls for me. Nobody ever calls for me anymore. Back in the day, we'd get some calls. I remember a friend calling me for weed in middle school. I was like, you can't call my house. Nobody calls me from like being upset. But here's the point. I never answer the phone, and my parents always take every call for me. So the cops call, and my mom and dad. I'm trying to. I better remember this right because it's important. Oh yeah. By the way, I'm downloading porn too. From kink.com. Like adult film. I'm also downloading porn that day too. Like today's the day. We signed up for kink.com. So it also could have been kink.com. Anyway, here's the point. Because like you could click something when you go to kink.com and download porn. So like my mom just might have been mad I was downloading BDSM porn or something. But here's the point. Like they fucking came for me. Like it's sort of a story of how everyone came for me when I was innocent, and the end of that story. I don't really ever want to talk to human beings ever again, even though I'm QAnon. I'm glad we're doing this though, because this will be a great show. This will be a great film or story or whatever. Like it'll be a great in the frame. There he is talking on audio. Media. It'll be a great save file of media someday if I keep going and keep telling the story. Okay, so dysfunctional family, abusive parents. I never answer the phone. I never use the phone. Never use email. Oh, by the way, my phone doesn't even ring down here. Our house is a Faraday cage. That's gonna come up. When the cops came here, he tried to use his phone, and I was like, we don't even get signal here because we're in a Faraday cage in the house. A Faraday cage is a lattice of metal bars that interrupt radio signal because they're in an array. Or like an arrangement. So like there's absolutely no cell phone service down here, and even when you stand in the living room right when you come in the door, there's barely any service. So I really I can't get phone calls down here on my cell phone. Ever. I've never taken a cell phone call down here. My phone is connected to the modem, but my dad has it set up where we can't accept phone calls because I don't know why. And at least I don't even know if that's true. I know I can't get or make calls down here from my own cell phone, even though it's hooked to the internet. He's got it turned off or something. Or I've got it turned off and can't figure it out. But here's the point. I never use the phone ever. And I have abusive parents. And my father, man, if you want a guy who can't talk to his son, who grew up and really couldn't communicate with his dad, that's him. So basically, let me make sure. Oh, yeah. Weed is becoming legal soon, too. So he thinks that I'm going to go buy a bunch of weed. So, like, he kind of wants to get rid of me. More or less, whether he means to or not, he means well. But, like, during this story, my dad might have been trying to get rid of me. And Anne Frank's dad might have turned her in, too. If you look up this Diary of Anne Frank, it just says the Diary of a Girl. It might not even be her, but the specifics of who turned Anne Frank in are so obscured that it might have been her own father. And it might have been exactly the way that the cops came for me, too. Anyway, I can tell they want the exclusive. That's what she's looking over here. She's looking at me like, I want the exclusive. You're giving the exclusive. This is the exclusive QAnon interview that is worth millions of dollars. But if I was selling QAnon, I would have been in jail a long time ago. One of the secrets I'll tell you to writing QAnon, and I learned it from Bill Cunningham, New York Times. There used to be this photojournalist who rode on a bicycle called Bill Cunningham, New York Times. He was like Fifth Avenue. They said the girls on Fifth Avenue all got dressed for Bill Cunningham. In the documentary, what was Bill Cunningham's documentary? No, the documentary. The most popular film is Bill Cunningham, New York. Yeah. There was anyway. Yeah. I watched a documentary, Bill Cunningham, New York, and a long time ago, and he said, "Don't ever take any food from the people at the galas and the the balls, the grand balls. Like don't ever accept food from them, and never accept money. Don't take any money from them." And he was New York Times, and he was society. He was. So I learned that from him, us New York Times guys. And so I was a huge fan of Bill Cunningham, New York Times. I was also a fan of, oh my God, don't forget his name. Oh my God, it's been so pop. No, I just had it and then I forgot it. David Carr. No, New York Times. Yeah. David Carr, New York Times, died 2015. Suddenly, when he was. I feel like he was pushed down the stairs at the train tracks or something. But anyway, Bill Carr. No, not Bill Carr. Bill Cunningham and David Carr were my biggest. I was their biggest fans in New York Times. Anyway, yeah. That's why I'm not saving this for the exclusive. Yeah, that's why they don't need to look at me like that because they want the exclusive interview with Q. I'm sort of under the school of the New York Times, Bill Cunningham, who said you never ever take money from these people, and especially don't let them feed you anything. You know what I mean? Like he's making them look fat more or less with his camera, and so they're like, have the oysters. They have red tide disease, like. So it was important that he told everyone, and I sort of never forgot that. Okay. So yeah, that's why we're just giving this all away for free right now. I've always given everything away for free. The Grandmaster who taught my dad his black belt used to teach black kids in Hartford for free. Because they needed to defend themselves, really. And also because Kung Fu class is like, yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but he taught for free, and that's why I never monetized my YouTube, and that's why I've never monetized anything. Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, I never ever pay my taxes. I haven't paid taxes since 2007 or something because I never make money. Like I said, we never take money for the news as Q and QAnon. So here's the point. I think when they sent the cops 9 days later, they did a huge investigation into me, and they thought I was homeless. They thought I never pay my taxes. They thought I was something I'm not. And that's fine, but I happen to be the author of the joke you just read. You know what I mean? I'm a writer, a man of letters. It's not that I'm just walking down the street. You just read my stuff. What I'm trying to imply is here there's a level of respect that we sort of begin with and start with when it comes to men of letters. All right. It's a long show. We better get it all in here. Okay. So they call, and my dad really won't tell me what's happening, and to this day won't tell me what's happening and what happened. So really it's just, even to this day, basically my mom and dad feel no obligation to be straightforward and honest with me at all about any of this. And they're the ones taking the phone calls from the police for me. It's just, they have phobic issues. They have fears. One of the real ways to explain my parents is they sheltered me. I've lived sheltered too sheltered, and really it's all about their fears and phobias of me and what I'm going to do. And really it's them. Really, everything they're afraid that I'm going to do is something that they would do because they're psychopaths. And so as a psychologist, they're treating me like a psychopath. I'm like, you guys have no idea what, you guys don't know anything about psychology. Anyway, they're pathological liars. I said my mom was a pathological liar and my dad's a stalker, but they're really both pathological liars on some level. So what I can remember is I'm down here downloading porn. I had just won all day. Oh yeah. I either went upstairs. No, I don't think I went upstairs. I think I stayed downstairs and they were upstairs and they stomped on the floor because that's how they get to me, and that's how they get me to know that, like, oh hey, it's sort of old to do around here, and that was how it was with my neighbors. But it's like stomp the floor and I'll come up and see what's up. So I stomped the floor and they're like, the police called or something, and they want you to call them back or something. Basically, what's happening is, what I'm thinking happened is they were all ready to frame me. It was all set to go. There's nothing anyone could have done. So I remember hearing that and going, oh, okay, I'll take care of it. And I walked back in here to my computer. Because we have the freedom of speech, I'm like, oh, well, I write jokes like this every single day for years and years now, since I graduated college. So, they haven't come so far, so, I'm good. I took care of it. And when I said I took care of it to my mom and dad, it was like, yeah, I took care of it because because I'm an American. I have the freedom of speech. I didn't say that, but that's what I meant. And then they think that I'm lying, and they think I'm a villain, and they've been watching too many, murder mysteries, and they've been watching too many Hollywood movies, and they just frame me, and the cops came and they were afraid to come down here, which is pretty funny, but whatever. So I came up. So basically, I'm like, I took care of it. You know what I mean? Because in my head, I have the freedom of speech, and I've been writing jokes like this every single day for years and years and years. And so anyone who reads one of my jokes will know that, like, I write jokes every single day for people around the world. Like, get in line if you don't like one. So, I'm sitting down here downloading porn. It's really rough sex porn, from kink.com with adult film, you know what I mean? And, like, the cops show up. I'm glad I didn't have my pants. I think I don't even know if my pants are on, but here's the point. It's a hell of a way to get arrested downloading porn in your house when it's not even it's totally legit porn that I purchased. I paid for it with my credit card. You know what I mean? It's kinky stuff, but, like, there it is. So and I feel like when you click on whatever you click on that website too, they're like, look, if we ever hate you, we're going to come, we're going to help find you or something. Like, I wonder if, like I said, there's so many suspects. Blizzard, kink.com. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, Google. What do you think? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Jeffrey Epstein and, I keep forgetting her name. No. The woman from Connecticut in the Epstein files. 10,000 times. 130,000 times? Oh, her name appears 130,000 times in the Epstein files. This person from Connecticut. Leslie Groff. Yeah, it's like, it could have been Leslie Groff and Epstein and Gillian Gilchrist. Like to this day, like it could just be like, yeah, like Gillian Gilchrist's father might have been eating children at Epstein's Island. Her husband might have been eating children at her brother might have been eating children at Epstein Island, and she doesn't even know that. You know what I mean? Like the people around her might have been trying to frame me, who were part of Jeffrey Epstein's cannibalism ring, sexualized cannibalism ring. You can't go to prison for that, though. They'll chop your head. They might give the gas chamber to Gillian Gilchrist and Leslie Groff. Like, I'm not kidding at all. Like, not even really exaggerating. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings either. Like, these people might truly, seriously be involved in Jeffrey Epstein's sexualized cannibalism ring. He had many locations. It wasn't just the island. He had locations around, like, everywhere. Anyway, one of the big problems is they can't stop me. If I left the house, I would have been hit by a bus, and we would not know any of this. That's why Anne Frank had to hide in her house, too. Like, there's this way that I can't really leave, and, because they would have me offed. But, like, we're on, and we're live right now, and, all right, so when the cops come here, I'm like, I put my hand on the table and I did like this thing with my hand on the table when they were there, when we were in the kitchen. And they're like, are you this or whatever that, or, and my dad, psychopath dad, is standing right behind me when the police, like, questioned me. Like, he could have had a gun to my back. You know what I mean? It was a very weird interrogation with my abusive, psychopathic father straight directly behind my back while I was talking to the cops in the kitchen. He's black belt dad, and we've never fought. I've never fought him because I'm so smart. So, like, he's just always ready to try to fight me, you know what I mean? He's a psychopath. So, like, I feel like he expected me to run, you know what I mean? Because he knows criminals, and he's a criminal, you know what I mean? Like, it's not me. Everything that my dad thinks I am that's bad is actually things that he personally struggles with. That's what I've come to arrive. That's what I've arrived at and come to find out. So it's all phobic, you know what I mean? Like, every fear that my mom and dad has for me, like pre-crime fear, it's all things that they would do because they are psychopaths. Not me, who grew up on the internet. I don't leave my house. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so different from what they're afraid I am. It's incredible. Literally, like, incredible. We can't credit it all. They're asking me questions, and they're like, "Do you remember this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is me, yeah." And it's like, and then we get to a point where I am just going, "This is embarrassing." You know what I mean? Like, I kind of the details, you know what I mean? Like, we end up in the hallway, and they're like, "Should we walk over here or something?" You know what I mean? There was an element of let's diffuse this, but you need to understand that my mom and dad are already full psychopaths. They're full-on psychopaths. So this is not going to get diffused. This is their wet dream, is getting rid of their son, their deadbeat son. It was the same way that Anne Frank had the Nazi Germany SS officers come and get her. He was kind of sick of getting her groceries behind the wall. It was the exact, from what I understand psychologically, it was the exact same phenomenon. And man, that makes a good story. In the courtroom, that makes a good court case. On the page of a newspaper, that makes a great story. The exact same phenomenon as Anne Frank was taken, in 2018. Anyway, that's why I'm still down here. So, going on with the story. I don't exactly remember. I don't exactly remember, but we were we were kind of in the hallway toward the living room now. And I just remember I was smoking weed 2 seconds before this happened, by the way, because, I'm smoking weed when I'm telling you the story. I never stopped smoking weed, so this whole thing is from a weed smoker. I just remember saying, "This is embarrassing." And I said it at least 4 or 6 times or something. It could have been more. Couldn't have been any less than 4 or 6. I just remember going, "This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing." And I wasn't really even talking about me. That's what the most important thing of what I was trying to tell them is that I am a famous investigative journalist of international news. This is embarrassing. Basically, the behavior of the justice system right now, juxtaposed in relation to my authorship of the list of jokes that I've written in my life, this is embarrassing to the nation. I am not an embarrassed person. Maybe I was a little concerned this was going to be embarrassing, but when you come for Anne Frank, this is going to be embarrassing. I can almost guarantee you, when the day you finally decide we're going to Anne Frank's house, this is going to be fucking embarrassing. It was a warning to them that I'm an author. I write for the newspaper, and one day I'm going to tell the story, and this is going to be wholly and entirely extremely embarrassing for everyone involved. That was really what I meant. And I wasn't, because it was scary. I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm a famous author and read my other jokes so you can give me 60 more counts of, I don't know, crimes against Nazi ideology. Whatever you're doing is Nazism. And so whatever I've done, if we want 60 or 1,000 more counts of whatever you think I did, you know what I mean? I wasn't like, hey, look, I'm a writer and I write for the newspaper every day, okay? And here's the thing. As an investigative journalist, when the Nazis show up, as long as they're not going to kill you, you really do want the story. And that's the author. This is the story of the author of QAnon now. And here's the thing. I never leave my house. I might be more innocent than Jesus Christ. If he had the internet, he would have beaten me. But because you just sit in front of the computer, it's like walking up to the Buddha, and instead of cutting your arm off, cutting his arm off. I have a feeling every single person involved is involved in Epstein, including my parents. Like I have the strangest feeling that's actually what's going on. Did you hear that? Okay, moving on with the rest of the story. Because someone made a noise outside of my room, I think we're going to move on with the rest of the story. So yeah, I was like, this is embarrassing. And then I sat down on a chair, an antique chair, which is pretty much carved for royalty, whether you know it or not. I sat down on a chair like an interrogation. I got the chair and walked over and put it in the middle of the room and sat on it like it was an interrogation. And I said, I don't remember the order of what was said here, but I know that the next thing I said was, and what are your names? When I sat down and it was like, okay, let's have the interrogation. Like it sunk into me that we were here doing this. I sat down and in the absolute most intimidating way that I could possibly say it, I said, and what are... I started the sentence with and authors, amateur writers know that you're never, ever supposed to start a sentence that you're writing with the word and what are your names? Right? I said it about 10 times scarier than that. And eventually he tries to use his phone. We're in a Faraday cage in this house, so he like can't get signal. And then and then we go to the house phone, and I don't know how to work the house phone when they hand it to me, so it seems like I don't live here. This was like right before Thanksgiving, so they think that I'm like, because they don't know that I live here, and I've lived here the whole time, except for like a few months when I moved in with my brother and mentor at the mall while I was in college. I still kept all my stuff here, kind of. So like, and I came back a lot. So like, basically what you need to know is I've lived here every single day of my life, more or less. So I think they may have thought, this is a theory, that like I was like some sort of like, drug addict, and I came back to my house for Thanksgiving and now we're having a problem. I don't even give a shit about Thanksgiving. Every day is a vacation day for me, so I don't even care. I'm just writing jokes every single day. It just this is what I mean by like, when they come for you, when you write jokes every single day and then they finally come for you for one of them, it's right before Thanksgiving and they're having a problem. This isn't that I was having an issue. It's like someone else is going something, like, anyway. So it's like a few days before Thanksgiving. They sent him here. So after I say, and what are your names? After I'm sitting in the chair in the living room, they give me their names, probably fake, doesn't matter. I'm an investigative journalist. I wrote QAnon, internationally acclaimed, investigative journalist. It doesn't matter what they're, you know what I mean? Like, it's basically a trick question, because for my whole life, I always knew that, like, from what I know about fighting guards in the video game and stuff, is that, when the Nazis come to your house and get you, you're supposed to ask them for their names. Now, if you're out causing problems in the street, and you're causing, and then you're like, tell us your names, and it's a protest, that's not as solid legal grounds. But if you're chilling at home and the Nazi Germany police officers come, you kind of want to snap them out of it a little. Like, the hell is going on here? And it was also a warning of like, by the way, I'm going to have your names eventually if you guys are criminals. It was really, I was sort of accusing them of being criminals at that very second. Like, I'm going to find your names, and and by the way, I'm an investigative journalist, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And that's sort of what QAnon is. Just so you know, in 2026, this all happened in 2018, 8 years ago. So we can track the illegal arrest of QAnon himself all the way to 2026, where whatever's going on right now, backtrace it back, But here's the point. Let's get back to the story. Eventually, they hand me the house phone. Again, remember when I said I never use the phone? It looks like I don't live here and I don't know how to use the house phone. And so, and also the TV happened to be broken in the living room and we didn't fix it. And we should have fixed it earlier. I should have fixed it for my mom earlier. But and so and by the way, my mom never cleans the sink. So it smells terrible in the kitchen. And to this day, it smells like death in there. I'm like, can we please fix it? And it's like, no. So there were all these things scaring who, you know what I mean? Like, we don't just so you know, in our house, we're psychopath alcoholics. So we don't entertain people. When we never, ever have anyone just entertained at the house here. You know what I mean? Like, psychopaths. So this whole, the cops visit, it's like, it looks bad. It looks bad. If you don't understand how people really live, it looks bad. Probably smelled bad. I probably smelled bad. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's right. I did smell bad because I do this thing where I work so hard on the computer that I skip showers, and I skipped showers for days and days. So they wanted me gone. You know what I mean? Nobody was asking me to take a shower. Maybe or not, but I just remember, yeah, I hadn't taken a shower for a long time too. Doesn't help. But that's the thing, and every good psychologist knows you can't be arrested for being smelly. You know what I mean? It's not a crime at all, ever. And that's because everyone smells. When you get close enough to anyone, they smell. You know what I mean? So it really can't, it's not a crime and can't be a crime. But it didn't help. It didn't help anything. Not a crime. You know what I mean? So she gives me a lawful order. Eventually, oh yeah, no, so eventually I call the police department. No, they call their police guy, and I talk to him on the phone. I'm like, hey, what happened to my First Amendment? And they're like, look, we work for this guy called Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know what he said, but that's kind of might have been how it went down. You know what I mean? In other words, it didn't matter what I was gonna say at that point. And you know what I mean? It's just. I'm pretty sure that everyone was trying to frame me by then. We were just trying to get me on more crimes. But, so she gives me a lawful order and she goes, you're going. And I was like, let's go. I'm a psychologist. My colleagues, my professors at the University of Connecticut, you know what I mean, in stores, let's go talk to them. You know what I mean? They're my old professors, So, so they call an ambulance. And we're waiting there, just sitting around. And I walk out, and the last thing I say to them is, Lord Erickson isn't even real. And I walk out really fast out of the front of my house, and there's a police car there with the lights on, and the ambulance there. And I looked at the cops, and then I looked away because I felt like I was in danger or something. They might have, I walked so fast out of my front door that, because I was so offended. I mean, you need to understand, I was ready to go report these people to the authorities. That's how I was walking out my front door, So I walked into this ambulance like the Joker. You know what I mean? You know that scene when the Joker walks into the school bus from the back? It was like that. I walked in the ambulance exactly like that. Stepped up. They didn't even get out. I just walked in the door. I think they knew what I was there for. I think they knew I was being framed. And just like in the Joker, the movie, that was the Joker from The Dark Knight. Just like in the Joker, by the way, they made the film The Joker. Let's play the Joker while we're doing this because just so you know, when my court case ended, the Joker came out as a movie with Joaquin Phoenix. And it was kind of about me. You know what I mean? Like, more or less, they made that movie for the story of QAnon himself, who is me. You know? And yeah, he does know him. You know what I mean? In the movie, it's like ambiguous whether he's his dad or not. No, he does know him. If it's stories about me, yeah, we do know each other. Okay, he's not my dad, but father-in-law. Father-in-law. You know what I mean? The guy's not Joker's dad, but he might have been his father-in-law. You know? I'm not. I'm never married. Just might have been. If they are involved. If they are involved, and I don't even know. So there's a lot of people. Without dropping names, there's a lot of people who could be involved, and that's what I was just talking about. Everyone from Connecticut. You need to understand that this whole thing was like a Connecticut thing. We don't handle some things very well here, and this is one of them. Like the truth. There's something about getting the real truth out in Connecticut that's like not a tradition here within our culture. You know, like it's something. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what it is. I can't exactly explain it, but there's something there. There's something where like if you connect some two dots, they cut it, and that's why they call it Connecticut. There's a way you're getting away with all of this arresting Anne Frank thing in Connecticut for a reason. It's a thing here. By the way, our only viewer who was watching me just now, they left when I said I skip showers. That makes me feel so good, you know, about myself. You know what I mean? They were with us all the way up through the story until I said sometimes I skip showers. And I smelled that day. They disagree that it's not illegal to smell. But yeah, no, it's true. You can work on the computer so hard every single day that you'll skip showers too much. As long as you're working hard enough, you can really skip them. Anyway, I'll just pretend that they didn't leave when I said I skip showers. Let's just pretend they had to go, and they'll catch it later on video on demand, VODs, you know. Okay. The tank top isn't helping at all. Yeah, this tank top is not helping at all. I took a shower today. I took a shower this morning. We should have said that before I told the story. I think I took one yesterday too. Did I? No, I didn't actually. But it's okay. We're good. I took one a few days ago. Here's the point. So I walk into this ambulance and we drive it to the place. They wanted to capture me and bring me to Hartford, but I went to Manchester. They gave me a choice. That's why it's here when they're trying to frame people or something. I get in there and I'm sitting there on a cot and it's getting dark. It's getting late. You know what I mean? People are walking by me and, they put me in pants and a shirt, you know what I mean? And, I'm sitting there on the cot and I'm looking at the camera and I give him this. I sit there exactly like this. It's, I'm cross-legged and I have my hands on my knees and I'm like this. Because that's the Illuminati sign for the Freemasons, you know. But I'm not giving it. I'm holding it like that with plausible deniability, where it's not like, you know, I'm losing track with reality. It might be that I'm actually new Freemasons, and I did, you know. So eventually they come by. Oh, by the way, when they're bringing me in, they were asking me questions, and they put this thing on my lap with like my name on it 100 times, like I'm gonna be here forever. I was like, all right, and it's like interesting. The woman asks me, you know, and what's your religious affiliation? And I turn and I go, let's not do that now. Let's not do that now. You know, like I talked so down to her. It you know, is like, because I'm a convinced atheist, but it was more like, let's not. It was like telling a child with a noise toy, you know, let's not do that now. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I said to what religion are you? And anyway, when I got in the ambulance, I turned to the guy and I said, look, you need to tell me exactly what's going to happen to me when we get there. And he was like, yeah, you're going to get there. And then they're talking, it's fine. And he looked at me and he had a grin on his face. And I was like, wow, he either really likes to put people away or he knows something about me that I'm going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, like he looked like he knew me. And I think the girl driving it knew me. Like, they looked like they knew me and they almost looked like, we know they're trying to frame you almost. Right, because the cops called them, so like they had to like get the story, and I don't think they told him a very convincing story from the beginning. And so he kind of looked at me like, yeah, I know you're going to go tell on those police officers. Let's go, you know. And so we get there and the woman asks me, what religion are you? And I say, let's not do that now. And that was the end of her questions. And I sit there. Time's getting dark. Remember when I said that I'm non-24? We didn't even have a word for that back then, too. The commercials came after. But here's the point. I wasn't going to go to bed anytime soon. So what happens, because I'm a psychologist, I know this. They were going to have to sedate me for the night to have me even go to bed. But I never go to sleep at night. You know what I mean? I'm a night owl, so I never go to bed. So like, I'm requesting that I talk to someone. I'm like, we need the evaluation, you know, blah blah blah. So I talk to this woman, and when I look into her eyes, I don't look away from her eyes the whole time we speak, because we go into this room with a thing, and I'm explaining that I write jokes every day, and that if you don't get my joke, that's not my fault. And what the hell happened to my free? I don't know if I said freedom of speech, but let me hold on. Let me try to remember exactly what. Yeah, and I was like, look, I leave really, like I'm out here writing jokes is sort of the point of it. Oh, and I remember saying this, and I basically was like, and basically we're gonna have to go report everyone for this. Like, if you guys don't let me go, we're basically gonna have to report everyone for what happened here. And I was pretty much already, by the time that I was like, what are your names? I was already like, we are going to write the newspaper story about this. At the very least, one day we're going to tell this story, because, you're Anne Frank. It's that thing that they tell you as a kid, what happens when the Nazis come? What do you do? Like that's exactly what happened to me in 2018. So here's where we start finding real evidence. After I talk to her, she's like, okay. And then my dad walks into the place like a doctor, like he's Dr. Father or something. And he sits next to me and he's like talking about how like my, like my tablet's broken or something. What's interesting is that he's been spying on me on my tablet the whole time, and I've been doing algo manips on like all these different websites, and just you know what I mean, like just kind of being a little chaotic on certain websites, like just reaching out and just trying to see what kind of algo manips and effects. Basically, he doesn't like what I'm doing on my tablet, more or less. I don't even know. I had to guess that he was spying on me on my tablet, but I don't know that for sure. But here's the point: like, I put heinous things in my tablet or whatever, but it's just like, I don't know. But my tablet broke. And I think like he might have hacked it or had someone hack it or somebody hacked it. It was a Fusion tablet, so it might be involved in the Fusion GPS scandal. The Fusion GPS, scandal that unbroke. They might have, I don't know if it's same Fusion or whatnot, or whether they use GPS to find me. I don't know. But, and it's still unclear to me the exact facts and evidence of why he said that to me while I was sitting on the cot or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I've never seen a tablet do that. It just like broke. Because we were just making small talk. We were sitting there. And then, I don't know, but I have this sense that he was the one who framed me, and that's why he was there. But anyway, he went there to come get me, and then, whatever. I wouldn't sign. The one thing you need to know is when they put the paper in front of you, don't sign it, because they're torturing people. We know that from COVID now. Once you sign that paper, they have your meat like a cow, and they're gonna slaughter you or something. Like just the only reason I'm here today is I didn't sign their paper. So I walk out, and as I walk, I turn to the security guard and I say, "Have a good evening." Like, they're going to get payback for this. Whomever did this is going to we're going to even the score someday. In the most, like, I didn't even sound it like it was my own voice. In the most dapper, proper, like I'm on the Titanic and it's the 1800s. It was literally like, "Have a good evening." I didn't even sound like myself. But dude, I'm telling you, I said it like way scarier than that. And we walked out, and I remember being incredibly angry. I never get angry. If you watch this show, I never get angry. I was furious. I knew we were going to have to even the score someday. I was walking out through the electric doors. Days go by. I go home, days go by. I go home and I am immediately like, we now have lifelong enemies, apparently. I've never, ever had an enemy, an actual enemy in my entire life. And I go home and I'm sitting here upset because I now have an official, serious enemy in my life. And I don't know who they are. I don't even know who they are. I've never met them. I don't know who they are. So days go by. I'm in a guild called HOT, H-O-T. It stands for criminality. Anything that's hot in the game is criminal. And so I used to murder other players for this guild called HOT in 2003. So this was 2018. So I had been in HOT. I had been a HOT guild member, 2018 minus 3, for 15 years. I've been murdering people for this guild called HOT. It stands for criminality. In the game, though, this is all in Ultima Online. But they are real criminals in real life, I'll bet. But here's the point. I get into a guild meeting in voice with HOT. I know that they're investigating me now. So I know there's someone in this guild who's just straight up investigating me. Because this was a politician. It was Jillian Gilchrist and stuff and the Capitol Police and stuff. So I just know automatically someone's infiltrated HOT. And I remember saying, I forgot what I said for a second. What did I say? What did I say to HOT? I knew, I just automatically assumed that we were infiltrated. And the next thing I said, what the fuck was I going to say? What did I tell them? I used to remember what I said, but I forgot. It's been so long since I told the story, I forgot what I said. Anyway, I say something really intimidating to the people in HOT. Like, I think I was like, here's what it was. I assumed that I was just being constantly 24/7 watched after this happened. I was very scared. And so when I got into the HOT guild chat and we got on voice, we were having a guild meeting. We were talking about upcoming stuff. I was basically acting normal. And I was like pretending to ask a normal question. That's why I don't really remember exactly what it was. I think I said this comment like, we got to make sure that like, we got to make sure that like, I think I said we have to put more people for scouting, scouting things and making sure we, figure out what's up. It was a really like investigative journalist, like send out the people and find out what happened. It was kind of like that. Like I wasn't even really talking to anyone or, I just wanted to intimidate whoever was investigating me by just saying something like in game, like we do this thing where we scout for, champ spawns in like Ultima Online and battle other guilds, and I was like, look, we need to get more scouts out there we need to get more people, walking around looking for, like, I mean, like I was trying to kind of sound like, like, hey, we got to make sure we're watching our backs out there. So, you know what I mean? Like whatever. And then like the next day or a day or two after that, the Hartford Police Department calls and they're like, we're arresting you, and like, I was like, okay. And I was like, hey, I thought you let me go. And I was like, can you repeat that again? I didn't even know what the heck he was talking about. I was like, I needed him to repeat it again. It's actually a trick that like, attorneys use in court to have someone repeat exactly what they said. It's impossible. Just so you know, like, if you say something to someone and then you have them repeat the exact same thing, it's impossible to say it verbatim unless you have a script or something. So like, I kind of was like, can you say that again? You know what I mean? And like, whatever. And I was like, I thought you let me go, and stuff like that. And like, what? It's kind of like, but there was part of me that was like, oh, okay. That's the next chess move you're going to make? This whole game is bad for you. Arresting innocent people, framing innocent people, treating people like Anne Frank. It was cool. I was like, this whole thing is bad for you. So it was like, oh, here we are. So I have the court date. So I had that court date or whatever. And we're going to court. Oh, no. I say, can you give me 1 day to get ready to be arrested? And he was like, sure, yeah, come in tomorrow, we'll arrest you. Which is like, I'm sure that Jillian Gilchrist, when she found that out, if she ever found that out, or her attorneys, they were like, what? But they think I'm more dangerous than I am. They don't know I'm a world famous journalist. Trust me. They had no clue the whole time. I write for the newspaper more every single day than world famous journalists who are bigger than me. They have families and things to do. I down here every single day. Alone. And that's why when you send the cops eventually, it's not very nice. It's really wrong. It's not the right thing to do. No. But so where were we? It's hard. This story is getting harder and harder because by this time you would hope that someone came through and I don't know, treated me like a human being. Let's start there. Yeah. It's very easy to not treat people like human beings in postmodern era. Right? The 1920s were the modern era. It was make it new. And then there was postmodern. And now, as my favorite author, David Foster Wallace, says, we are in the postmodern era. If anyone was wondering, sort of like why it's so easy to do this to me kind of thing. What else? As comedians say when they're out of jokes on stage, they go, what else? Oh yeah. So I'm like, give me 1 day to be arrested. And I didn't sleep for 24 hours. I laid in my bed awake, imagining that I would go to prison for the rest of my life and never come out. Jeffrey Epstein himself somewhere was being murdered in prison. If he died, he was also, or he went to the witness protection program. By the way, actually that was after this. During the whole, they make you wait when a court case is going on. That was when Jeffrey Epstein died. Was in the middle of it. Was in the middle of my human trafficking joke case. Like they had something to do with it. I am suggesting that there's some sort of connection here. Because they thought I was a criminal. You need to understand that every single person in my entire life thinks that I'm like a straight up real criminal, but I'm just a weed smoker and you guys are criminal. Like. That's what I mean by like WhatsApp messages. Like, we need the AOL instant messages of these people. The federal grand jury, which indicts the criminals involved. You know what I mean? We need the evidence, effectively. of every single person, even the illegal evidence that you're not allowed, even like the illegal wiretapping evidence. We're going to need to take a look at it. At least run it through the AI for me, Because it's the story of QAnon. I mean, this is for history, literally the history books, capital T, the history books. That's why we're going to get the evidence. In other words, if you are the real true author, the one true author, I'm sorry, not the one, but the real Q, you don't need to wait for your FOIA request, your Freedom of Information Act request. They make you wait an inordinately amount of time, but if the president of the United States or someone akin to that, the U.S. the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court says, "Look, we're going to need that now," you get an expedited version.
Like the Skins Game, a show I produced for them, which is a live event on Black Friday, or some other content, and that's why you're now paying that $99. It's not just about the $99.
Right. They waive the fee when it's Q himself
Amount of toilet paper.
and expedite the process, Forget about it, though. Like, forget about whether I'm Q or not. It's not really important. In fact, they're all supposed to get equal justice, but obviously, by how this story's been going so far, that's been thrown out a long time ago. So, where are we? Ah, yes. I lay in my bed without sleeping for 24 hours, and really, it should be noted, as far as damages go, this is where they're going to pay the most. Like if we add up the monetary number of damages, the waiting awake in my bed, in my own bedroom for 24 hours, waiting to be arrested and never get out, was the worst psychological attack that I've ever. It was the worst damage from another person that I've ever known. And it really does truly work. Like, I felt the fear of Anne Frank. You know what I mean? Like, I've never believed in God, so I've never felt the fear of God. But that night, while I stayed awake, laying there wishing I could fall asleep, and then had to get up and go to the police department to be arrested in the morning, was not only health-wise unsafe, but absolutely off the charts as far as damages go. I just and I pretended like, I mean, I was actually asking my moms for some moral support at the time, like just to be like physically close to me, even though they were betrayers. Trust me, the number in money would be like off the charts if we go there, if it goes there. That's the moment. Anyway, so I go to the police department with, guess who? My dad, the main suspect in the whole thing of this. You know what I mean? He never leaves my side through this whole story because he was like heavily involved. May or may not have been Epstein. So here's the point. Like, I go to the this is a pretty good story. This story is getting better and better. I don't know why our viewer left. No, I'm just kidding. 2.5 hours, we're still good. Let's see if we can do this under 3. So my dad drives me to the Hartford Police Department, which is the worst city in the world. In all of Connecticut, in all of the U.S., it's the blackest city and it's the worst city and the poorest city. So I'm basically going there to die, to be killed in jail, more or less. And remember, Epstein is not caught. Right now, at this moment, when I'm going to go do this, Epstein is not. I don't even know if maybe he was caught. I don't remember, actually. Hold on a second. Let me check. Wait a second. I'm actually going to get my facts straight right here for you. With dates. I just want to check the dates on something so I can get the facts straight. Right? Everybody loves this in court where it's like, ooh, bring him the laptop and he actually needs to look something up, you know? It's like fun. Normally people do this to like stall, like, look, we need to stall for you know what I mean? Till then. It's like I actually need to look this up. What date did Jeffrey Epstein enter the prison system before his disappearance? Okay. Jeffrey Epstein. I love when we talk about how I was illegally arrested. I love starting the sentence with, okay, Jeffrey Epstein entered the federal prison system July 6th, 2019. No, he didn't. Oh, here. No, wait, hold on a second. July 6th. And then held there until August 10th when he disappeared. Hold on. July, August. You're kidding me. Wow, Jeffrey Epstein didn't spend any time in jail. Dude, he definitely got out in the witness protection program. It's so interesting. Yeah. For some reason in my head, you know why? Because who was going to jail while this? It was like Paul Manafort. I've got it mixed up with Paul Manafort. Right? When did Paul Manafort go to prison? June 2018. No. When did what's his name? Roger Stone get raided by the police? Raided at home by the police. Oh, you know what it was? What's his name? Michael Cohen. When did Michael Cohen go to prison? May. Really? Oh yeah, Roger Stone. Thank you. Okay. Here it is. Roger Stone was raided and arrested by the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, at his Fort Lauderdale home on January 25th, 2019. Okay. Yeah, so like Roger Stone was being arrested as my court case was going through with the, when I was innocently arrested. Yeah, it's like a timeline here. There's Roger Stone, there's Michael Cohen, there's Jeffrey Epstein, and Paul Manafort. Yeah, in like a short amount of time. It's so suspicious, you guys. It really is. The whole thing. I can't too. It's a pick and mix. My now favorite presenter at LBC Radio in England. We do the news over there more than here because they're on more. He got caught. He said he never does protests on the radio anymore because he got caught in the pick and mix by a really nice old lady. He was protesting a supermarket, but they're the only ones with pick and mix. That's what it's like with the amount of people from the Trump administration that were arrested either during or immediately after my illegal arrest for being innocent. It's like a pick and mix of who is involved. Like literally, like have some raisins and some peanuts. Oh man, let's make it more fun than that. I don't know. Okay. Um. So. Uh. Oh yeah. So the worst damage I suffered was right then, and so I walk. So me and my dad. My dad drives me to the Hartford Police Department, and we walk in. I walk up to the desk, which is just a sheet of glass. This is such a great. I bet this is going to be a great episode because it's a great story. Um, this might be like the most compelling episode of live I've ever done, and I hate it because this is terrible for the country, for the nation, for the species, for the human species. This whole thing is terrible. Unless we're going to learn a lot from it and figure it all out, because in spite of it. Like, I would much rather be telling a story of how I triumphed. It kind of is, even though it's for other people. Anyway, I walk into the police department in West Hartford. Was it West? I think it was West. Or no, it was Hartford. Anyway, no, I can't remember. I think they were the same building or something. I don't remember. But I walk in. I walk up to the desk. There's glass. There's a super hot, really pretty police officer. Guess why? Because they think I'm a creep, and that's why they, you know what I mean? Like, it's because of my joke. They put her there to, if I want to act out or whatever, then they got me. But I'm not like that. I never talk to women. In 40-Year-Old Virgin where he goes, I respect women so much I totally avoid them. Like, he literally took that line from me. That's exactly what it is. So, like, this woman has no chance with me even, you know what I mean? Like, because I never talk to them. So I walk up and I go, I'm here for a meeting. I don't say I'm a suspect in a criminal case. I literally just say I'm here for a meeting. Like I'm still an investigative journalist here to bust them. Like I'm a famous author and they want to talk to me, they want to meet me, and the only way they could meet me was to arrest me. I'm here for a meeting. You want to meet the author? You want a book signing? You're going to have to arrest me. You know what I mean? Anyway, trust me, I'm a genius author. And like I said, I'm a vicious player killer murderer. And part of the murdering that we do is we can talk while we fight. So, like, not only am I a good fighter, I'm a really good shit talker and just talker in general. Like, in a court case, I'm lethal, unbelievably verbose and succinct or whatever, all those words. Elaborate, lucid. I go lucid like my favorite author, David Foster Wallace. She says, okay, I do an about face. I do the best about face. Oh, no, I remember. No, hold on. Wait. It wasn't that. That's not the about face. So she says, fine. Well, wait here. So I'm waiting in the police lobby with me and my dad, and there's a showcase of pewter, like, police objects, like any little tchotchkes, the Semites call them, the little tchotchkes, like toys for adults, but like all police things. And there's one big policeman statue of like a police officer, and he's huge, and he's looking down with like a whistle in his mouth. And I'm looking at it, and I say, and all of a sudden, I recognize it. And I do, and as I do, I perform the greatest about face that I've ever done. And I was like scouts, you know what I mean, and stuff. And like my dad was in the Marine Corps, so like we kind of mess around with marching. But I do one of the best about faces. I can't even replicate it. You'd have to look at the video at the Hartford Police Department. Like I about face like, and just lock right on my dad, and I say, "I've been here before." Right? Like I was here, and when I say that, I say it like I was here last week with the Hartford Current. You know? Like um because and I don't explain. And the police are definitely listening to us. You know what I mean? I know this the whole time. And by the way, the whole time my dad was spying on my tablet and concerned for me, I knew he was spying on me then too. I'm just out there doing algo manips. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't understand. But it's like computer hackers. Don't worry about it. It's not illegal at all. It's just, algo manipped out there. It's, as a psychologist, the way I'm manipulating the algos in the search engines, just forget about it. But here's the point. Like I do it for research and stuff, so like just stop bothering me. But like I think that was part of the aspect, but I don't explain when I say I've been here before. But I suddenly realized that when we were on a field trip in elementary school, we went to like the Bushnell and then down, and we walked down, or no, we went to like the Wadsworth, and like we went to a museum, and then when we were kids, we had like extra time or something, or maybe it was part of the journey. We walked to the police station and like took a tour of the building when I was in elementary school. But I didn't explain that. It just sounded like I was just here last week with the Hartford Current. You know what I mean? You guys are busted. Anyway, so I saw, it was interesting though. Like I was really genuinely surprised. Like I literally, as I was looking at the one huge thing, I said, "Oh my God, I recognize that. I've been here before," in my head. And so I did the about face and said it like I was here last week. Anyway, and then my dad is wearing this belt with flags on it. And again, I'm a genius. I'm a genius with an absolutely photographic memory because I was abused as a kid, but that's another story. Not badly, don't worry, but enough to be photographic. So what's interesting is if you play back the surveillance footage of all this stuff, it's like verbatim true. And it's amazing. Even I am amazed at what I remember. But I live a very lonesome, lonely life. So a lot of times when something happens to me, it's the only thing that's happened to me for a long time. So we remember a lot. My dad's wearing a belt with flags on it. It's his favorite belt. He has the flags of all the ships, all the different kinds of flags of all different kind of ships on his belt because he's sort of a pirate and owns a boat. In like really expensive yacht land down in Connecticut, like Mystic River or whatever. So, he might be involved in pirates or not, but I say to him, just casually, I just go, "So when was the last time you were up a mast?" Because I'm just trying to make small talk with my dad. Like, I'm just trying to impress, because the way we communicate in our dysfunctional psychopathic family is whenever we see relatives or anybody else, we always brag about like the boat. Like, so like it's very normal and very common for me whenever anyone sees our family for me to turn to my dad and go, "Oh, when was the last time you went scuba diving?" Or when was the last time, you went to the boat? And I was just like, I saw the flags on his belt after this all happened, because we were still waiting, because they were waiting for me to freak out. Everyone is waiting for me to freak out and be an actual criminal when I'm actually the investigative journalist behind the Epstein story. So I'm there to nail them all. I'm there to bust every criminal in the police officer uniform in the West Hartford Police Department at this point, with the help of the newspapers that I write for around the world, right? Whether they like it or not. By the way, it should be noted, whether the newspapers like it or not, I write for them. That's how I got started, and that's what I do. You know. Anyway, as the author of QAnon. But here's the point. So I asked him, when was the last time you went up a mast? Because he would get this swing out and like pull himself up a mast. So like I kind of wanted to impress everyone. That's what we do in my family, is we sort of impress everyone else with our sailing stories. But looking back on it now, it was sort of like I was like, when are they taking you in? It was kind of like that. When was the last time you've been up the mast of a in Keelhold, down there by Nazi officers or something? Anyway, so they call me in. I walk in. They touch me, and I walk in. We go to the meeting. They don't cuff me. The meeting at this point, because it's gotten word that I'm here for a meeting, and I'm totally innocent at this point. This is a great. I've never told this story, by the way. I've been so scared for 8 years in a row. I thought they were going to come back. That by now, trust me, we're coming for you by now. Like with cuffs for these police officers or for these politicians or for the president. I don't know who it is. Whomever did it. That's why we use the royal who. Whomever did it is getting the cuffs. That's sort of why we're ready to tell the story now. I've never really told this yet. It was too dangerous. It was too legally dangerous. Anyway, because it's dark. I mean, this is the Diary of Anne Frank happening to me. And now I'm sitting there in the police, and the police is right, this police station, the police man is right there at his desk, and in front of me is just this ring on the ground where they chain drunks to when they're out of control and they're blackout drunk and they can't control themselves. And I'm just staring at it, and I'm just thinking, I'm basically prepared to die. By the way, remember I said I'm a famous murderer, player killer? Part of being the best murderer online and being famous for it is that you're never scared. And I can't be, because I can't be scared. I can never cry, never be scared, because I wouldn't be the best. If I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like someone else would be the best if I was like that, but you can't be. So you train yourself to never be. So at this point, I'm absolutely 100% prepared to die, like a torturous death in prison and never get out. So I'm staring at this ring on the floor. And at the same time, I'm also like, I'm a world famous investigative journalist. There's no way the FBI doesn't have my full. By now, I've made the calculation in my head that if they have my one joke, it's on the same YouTube account. They've got all those other jokes, and they're going to be laughing like crazy when they read them. Like all night, they're going to be laughing all night. So, I am at the same time, like I want to end this story quick, but at the same time, this is a great story. Simultaneously, I am 100% prepared to die, and also completely calm, cool, relaxed, that that these police officers are criminals, and we are about to tape the evidence against them. Anyway, I'm telling you, this is really where the story gets really good. The police officer who took me in says 0 words to me the entire time and never really ever said any word to me. They don't ask me one question. They don't say anything to me. Silently, somewhere in a back room, they are figuring this out. And I think they are sweating way more than me. Everyone involved. They might be calling Jeffrey Epstein at this point. They may be calling Paul Manafort, who didn't get arrested by this. You know what? If the speaking of which, you know how they say when you teach, you also learn. Just by telling the story, I'm kind of figuring something out. At that moment, because the police officer who interviewed me never asked me one question, never said one word, I'm wondering if the chief of police who was trying to frame me and involved in the illegal criminal politicians, I wonder if he was calling Paul Manafort, and then he called, Roger Stone, and this list of people who got arrested afterward, I wonder if they're like the people that got called after this. And what's her name? I keep forgetting her damn name. Doyle. No, don't guess. What is the name of the woman from Connecticut in the Epstein files? Leslie Groff. You know what I mean? That Hartford Police Department officer might have called Leslie Groff, and then she called Paul Manafort and Roger Stone and Michael Cohen and Jeffrey Epstein, and like that's how it might have went down, like as they were sitting there, because I don't think anyone in the history of America has been arrested and never questioned or talked to. He said nothing the whole time. Like he had the right to remain silent. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Anyway, he's looking at his thing on a desk. Eventually, I realized that the camera in front of me, he's sitting at that desk. He's waiting for me to say something. I won't even say anything. And here's the most compelling, interesting part. Remember I said the damages part was the most damaged? This is the most interesting part. I have a feeling if I had said something, he would have let me off and I wouldn't have been arrested. Or they wouldn't have like given me a court date. I feel like that he was giving me a chance to beg out of it, but then they would have came back with something. Then Epstein would have really killed me or something. You know what I mean? Like I still feel like it was the right thing to do to just say nothing, because I wanted them to arrest me on some level. Like if you're going to arrest Anne Frank for nothing, then put it on paper for us to go, especially if I'm a journalist. Put it on paper for me. I'll write a story about it later, like let's make this official, It was kind of like that. I'm just playing that for fun. I'll watch it later. No, I'm don't get distracted. Let me hit the bong again, and we'll finish the story. Okay, here's what I'm saying. He's sitting at this desk facing this way. I'm sitting here where you take the pictures in the chair. The ring is on the floor over there with the bench with the drunk tank. And I think he was expecting a little more drunk tank from me than Nobel Prize winning author. Anyway, I think before I got there. Once I got there, they were like, I think they were sweating. I think it was them sweating. Anyway, eventually I realized that he's at the desk, like looking at his computer or something. I thought it was a paper, but he was at a computer. Eventually I realized that there's a camera in front of me, like a straight up camera, and it's right at my face. And what I realize is that he's taking video. It's not that that's the camera that's going to take my picture. It's that I'm already on video right now. So I close my eyes like this, and with my eyes closed, I face my head directly centered, camera perfect on the camera, and I open my eyes with a look of absolute what did you do? Okay, that was kind of the look on my eyes into the camera. And by the way, remember how I said I'm one of the greatest player killer murderers of all time? One of the things, remember I said I never cry and I never get angry? I never blink. When I'm fighting someone, even for like a few minutes, for like a George Floyd amount of time, I do not blink my eyes. And when I tell you this, I did not blink my eyes longer than I've ever not blinked my eyes in my life. Into the camera. So much so that my cheek starts to twitch, and he says, okay, that's enough. I'm going to have you send you over here to this guy, and they give me a paper. And no. He said, okay, that's enough. Come on over here and do this. And we do the picture. The first picture is straight on, and then I turn left, and he said, no, the other way. And I said, oh, and I have a smile on my face, and I'm laughing, and I turn the other way, and I think he took the picture of me with the side where I was like laughing with a smile on my face. So like it was like the Bill Gates what do they call that? Yeah. Jail photo or whatever. It was like the Bill Gates one. The second one where I was turned. It was like I think he joked with me and I laughed and I had a big smile on my face when he took the picture to the side. Like probably so much so that you couldn't even use it. And I was spinning around, you know what I mean? Like it was funny, like it was all a joke, you know, the other way. And then he walks me over to the papers, and it's just like this, and he says, this paper just says that you were here. And I was like, oh, this is the full, and in my head, I'm like, oh, this is the full confession that they're going to try to get away with because they think signatures, are smarter than the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, let me tell you how the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. operates. It doesn't matter if you sign any, like, they will do this and it's gone. It's done. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. So I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm an international investigative journalist. What should I do here? So they have me 3 papers with the same thing. I don't even read it. And I sign really sloppily the first time. Like very sloppy, don't care. Like I have this sloppy sign my name that I don't care. And I'm like, okay, there's that one. And then the second one, and then it was like the next one, I signed it like I was a judge signing their death warrants with my best signature. You look at it and you go, which federal judge is this signature? You know, like I signed it like, oh my God, that guy is important, you know? So I'm thinking, if these police officers aren't the criminals and they're not saying a word to me, I was like, okay, so they have 3 papers on it. They can show the politician the one where I don't know how to write and I'm illegible, and they can show the judge the one where I look like I, run the department. And I was like, he's just going to show whoever needs that signature. One sloppy, one perfect. And the other one, I don't know what. But at this point, they tell you never to do that. But at this point, I'm calling their bluff and I'm doubling down. And I can always write the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., no matter what happens, because I'm an internationally acclaimed, world-famous investigative journalist. And basically, these guys are super criminals. Someone here is a super criminal, and it might be Jeffrey Epstein at the top of it. So they fingerprint me, and it's funny to me. I think it's funny. You know what I mean? Put your hand here, put your hand here. It's funny. And it's funny to me because I never leave the house. So there's nothing that my fingerprints could ever be on. Like, they want you to freak out like you've been somewhere, that you've been out of the house in your life, but I only stay home. And even when they thought that I was going somewhere, I was just driving around smoking weed, when I was a secret smoker. So, like, my whole life, I've never touched, I mean, I've never really left my house. You know what I mean? If you want fingerprints on my porn computer, you got them, So that doesn't work. And, they put me in a room, scary room, and I look around at the ceiling like, whoa. And the cop walks by, the chief, or I'm going to just call him the chief, whatever he was or not, the decider. He walks by the room, and I saw him, I was looking at his eyes, and he looked at my eyes, and then he came in. And he's got this paper, and he's like, sign it, and I'm reading it, and like, as he like goes to get up, I'm like, sign it, give it back to him, and the charge was breach of peace, and I'm a candidate for a Nobel Peace Prize with part of the QAnon drops that I wrote about the Vegas shooting. So like, in the NPR account, remember when I said I wrote for NPR.org every single day? That was during the Mandalay Bay mass shooting, the biggest mass shooting in Vegas. And I put a call out on my main, more or less world famous NPR account. I said, I'm going to share a Nobel Prize Peace Prize with anyone who can, help me and tell everyone that the paywalls on newspapers, you know how you get like 5 free stories or 1 free story in the beginning of the month, and then you have to pay for the rest of the newspaper? The theory that I came up with one day, shortly after the Mandalay Bay shooting, was that because the cops couldn't find a motive for why it happened, it suddenly dawned on me that it was newspaper paywalls that were causing terrorism at the beginning of the month, because when someone decides when they're going to go on a mass shooting, they want the most news around their act. So if everyone has a free article on the first day of every month, that will cause mass shootings to happen then. That was the theory, and I was like, we're going to win a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, if anyone can help me, get this theory out. So that had already happened, and when I saw Breach of Peace, I was like, I'm going to win a Nobel Peace Prize someday. You guys are fucked, Fucking Martin Luther King got Breach of Peace too, you know what I mean? And a Nobel Peace Prize, you know what I mean? Like, it is so common for Nobel Prize winners to be arrested, you have no idea. It's super common, because we actually affect things. We actually make a difference. As in the language of politicians, Nobel Prize winners get arrested all the time for breach of peace, because we actually make a difference. In other words, we're not out there touting the party line. We're challenging the dogma of incumbents when we win Nobel Prizes. And that's exactly why I was arrested. And the idea that, so far in the story, the idea that no one has apologized to me for this yet, even though I asked for an apology. Let's get to it, but I eventually asked for an apology 5 years later, and maybe they did arrest some people for me. Like, I actually think that I think without saying it was you, it might have been me who got some of the ball rolling on the Epstein case. So the way that the Joker was in a police car and then gets hit by an ambulance and they pull him out and save him. That was the day that I was getting arrested and the ambulance came and saved me. Because I know the psychologists there. You know what I mean? Like, you understand that I was their student in the University of Connecticut, like, big time. So it's like when you come in there and you tell them who I am, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? These guys were my professors in college, you know? Where were we? I forget where we were. Anyway, while this was all going down, Joker got released. While the prosecutor was deciding what to do months later and the judge, they released this movie called The Joker, and it goes absolutely viral about me. And it's not about Eric Carpenter, it's about QAnon, the accounts that I wrote. You know what I mean? It's not necessary. It does. There are parallels, but let's begin the movie. And thanks for that, by the way. Let me double check that for you. It was. I remember. Yeah, I remember because I remember standing in the court and the Joker trailer was out. Yeah, it was released in August 2019. But here's when did the trailers release? The Joker trailer 2019. Hold on. When was the first Joker trailer released in 2019? April 3rd, right. That was like the week that they dismissed my case. If that's what happened, I'm not even exactly sure what happened at the end, which is interesting. Which isn't, it's interesting, but typical for me. Like, if you ever seen me interact with the guild or other people, like, it's just so funny the way I don't know what people are talking about, even though I should. I don't get what you're talking about. I have an idea in my head of what's going on, and it's really conspiratorial. So, like, I'm always like, what are you really saying? Like, what's really going on? So, like, I'm not even really sure how it ended. Truly, like, then. Yeah, the Joker. Yeah, the first trailer was April 3rd. Yeah, that was the month that my last court was. So, um I'm walking out of the station with my dad, and he says, "Is that good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's good. It's good." Because even though this is terrible, I know that this is all for the greater good because of who I am as a famous author. It's not who I am as a loser that they think I am. It's really who I am as a famous author, an investigative journalist, to be specific. So, and by the way, this will all be under Gonzo. Hunter S. Thompson was a Gonzo journalist. He was embedded with the Hells Angels. He like drove motorcycles with them and did drugs. You're embedded in Gonzo. You're embedded. When I was going through the justice system here, even though nothing happened, it was still straight up Gonzo journalism. Like I was there as an investigative journalist most of the time. That I wasn't scared, you know. Again, that's how we got in trouble was the journalism, in joke form. So it's like fighting fire with fire. I don't know what the fuck you think you guys are doing. And it was a lot of that. Anyway, um first court date, I show up, my case is lost in the system. I think he was hoping that I wouldn't show up again and then they could frame me later, but like I was lost in the system and there were like strange, unbelievable what happened here legal clerk mistakes exactly like this. Like that woman was like kind of the woman who had my case, which is kind of funny. She was younger. She was about 20 years younger than her at best, 10 at worst. But uh, uh my home life, my relationship with my mom and dad was like over at that moment. I've never been back to the boat since then. I have never trusted them ever again. Every time they ask me to go on vacation with the boat until now, in 2026, I say you shouldn't have betrayed me in 2018 because it's not safe. It's not that I don't want you to go to the boat with you anymore. It's that these people let the cat out of the bag on the Epstein's worst enemy, and now my life is in danger, and I can't leave the house. And that's Anne Frank's story. That's her diary as well. Arthur Fleck, can we see your diary? Oh, it's just some jokes I've been working on. Right? They went through my shit like that. You're going through the original QAnon drops when it's my account. The moon landings were fake. Vaccines cause AIDS. Worldwide cannibalism is real. We weren't there yet, but we were close. We were sounding like that. Right? Like, yeah, if you're a total Nazi, it sounds like I'm absolutely crazy. But if you're smart, like a genius, you go, oh, wow, that's really compelling. Like, yeah, we never landed on the moon. It makes sense that we never went back either. Like, it totally makes perfect sense. You know. Yeah, they just tried to go back and they were like, we're just driving around the block. Like, because we never really landed there in the first place ever. Um, okay, where are we next? Let's end this stream, by the way. Where are we next? Let's sort of wrap it up because it's been a long day. I kind of want to make this the episode and then we'll do fun things later. I don't want to do this, make the second half of this episode like fun on the piano. Like, we'll cut after the story is done. Yeah, so there was super suspicious things going on the first time I was in court. like the papers are gone. This is Hartford, Connecticut. We're all black, by the way. Like there's a lot of that, and you know, um, this story is so long. Let me go get a drink. I need I'm gonna go get a Coca-Cola, and because I never drink alcohol. Oh, by the way, when I went in, I breathalyzed zero. I forgot to tell you. I breathalyzed zero when they brought me in that night. I zeroed the breathalyzer out because I had not drunk. I was not drinking. I hadn't drank for a week or something. Like I was experimenting with not drinking at the time. So like. It was funny. It was like comical when he breathalyzed me because like I was like zeroing the thing out. Like and he was like, "It's broken." I was like, "I assure you, I haven't drank for a long time." So what else? Where are we in the story here? Oh yeah, they lose everything my first day in court. They don't even really tell me what happened or why. They're just like, look, somebody's shuffling papers here. The prosecutor has this huge manila folder, like when Neo meets the agent, and puts it in front of me. And for a second, my heart jumps. It's like, yeah, I'm a famous author, I hope that's all my stuff because at least it's in a book. We're going to bind that thing up and, I'm going to be a famous author. Like, and what was the line I said? I said, I deeply regret trying to goof around about such a serious subject. And the implications is that if you goof around with me, if you I said, I literally wrote the line because I'm an author and I stayed up all night before court too. I wrote a line for the prosecutor and it was, I deeply regret trying to goof around about such a serious subject. And the implications are that if you goof around about such a serious subject like me, you're going to deeply regret it too. Because I'm a famous author. I'm a world famous author and I'm American, so it's not even illegal. It was really a message, just like this is embarrassing. It was like, if you guys goof around about a really serious subject, you guys are going to regret this. But I was saying it about me. But I really mean that about you. But yeah, like if you punch me in my face, if I say a joke and you punch me in my face, yeah, I regret that. Even though you're wrong, you're totally wrong. You made me regret it because you hurt me. You hurt me. I said the joke. You hurt me. And yeah, now I regret it because you hurt me. You're a monster hurting people. So yeah, when it comes to goofing around about serious subjects, people will deeply regret that. Not just me. I'm the serious subject here. QAnon, by the way. Anyway. So they're like, look, we want you to take a course. They're like, look, we're ready to frame you as insane. Okay, we want you to take a course. And I went into the course and, I showed up and it was like drug course. When I got arrested for drugs, for marijuana, it was exactly like that. It was exactly the same form and course as when I got arrested for marijuana. We sat in the room and talked about addiction, like it was exactly like that. And I sort of led the discussion because I'm a psychologist, which is interesting. We talked about how I remember I was trust me, I'm a terrible guilty and I'm terrible at following directions. So even though they wanted to talk about something else, I was telling them about how eventually the discussion came to me leading the discussion and talking about how when Galileo Galilei discovered that they didn't believe they believed that I said something. Oh man, you know what? If I get it wrong now, I'll sound stupider than I am. Let me get it right. Let me remember exactly what I said. It was something about the Earth going around the sun and the sun going around the Earth. And I said something about Galileo, about the sun going around the Earth and the Earth going around the sun. And I had seen it on Cosmos, by Carl Sagan's Cosmos, which I have over there on the thing, because I had watched Twitch. After they arrested me, I stopped talking to people and stopped talking to the guild. I was spending a lot of time on Twitch, and Carl Sagan I saw the guy who paints, Bob Ross. Bob Ross had a marathon going on Twitch, so when I was there, I was like, oh yeah, I like to watch Bob Ross, and when they're like, tell us about yourself. Tell the group about yourself, and like, so I said something about Bob Ross and how he said every tree needs a friend. Like every faker who watches Bob Ross, they say happy trees. I was like, Bob Ross actually says every tree needs a friend when he does them. You watch. But, let me think. Other than talking about weed, I remember I was like, I quit weed. Right. Oh, and right. I was like, I quit weed. And weed was illegal at the time. So I was like, I quit weed just because I knew my parents were Nazis. You know what I mean? Like, and I was talking about how I had dreams that I was smoking weed with my friends, but then I'd wake up and be okay again, But, I've always been a rather open weed smoker, so even though it was legal, I was like, whatever. But, what else was I going to say? Not always been a super weed smoker, but for forever, for a long time, since school or whatever, since college or high school. What was I going to say? How did we get on weed? What was I talking? Oh yeah, we were talking about quitting weed. I quit weed because, trust me, when the Nazis are watching you and deciding whether they're going to let you off or not, I quit weed just to get the fucking feds off my back. You know what I mean? Like, it was really like, this is fucking scary. It was really like the SS officers are watching you. You know what I mean? Like, it was crazy. And I remember I said something, a Venn diagram. She drew a Venn diagram, and I said, that's a Venn diagram. And I don't even think she knew that it was a Venn diagram. And so, spelled with two N's. And then everyone started talking about Venn diagrams for a long time or whatever. Oh, yeah, and then I also went to see a woman because they dude, and I told her my story, and she was like, you got to go to this place. So before that happened, I saw a woman, and she was like, look, Glastonbury hates you and you should leave. And I was like, what? I was like, I'm going to be fine. And then she was like, you got to go see there. So like, yeah, I forgot a piece and, you know what I mean? But like, oh my gosh, it's a mess. All I know is that it was all like, yeah. Oh yeah. And when they brought me in, I was like, I'm an online real estate guy. When they were like, what's your thing? And I was like, I own a castle. And I really do. I own a castle worth billions of crypto. Like, I was talking about crypto. Oh, I forgot. That's the other thing. That's the other super important part of this story. I was trying to buy cryptocurrency that week when they came for me. I was also trying to buy cryptocurrency and just buy it and hold it in my wallet. And cryptocurrency was rather new. So like, that's another suspect to this whole thing. And plus I also bought a castle in Ultima Online. So like, like people want things from people are jealous of me and they want things from me. You know what I mean? So like it had that element also. Yeah, I totally forgot I was trying to buy the most cryptocurrency I've ever tried to buy that week when they came for me. Not arrested me later, but when they came for me, that week I was in the process of, I'd gone to the bank. Remember when I said I was sick? I went to the bank and a tiny drop fell out of my nose when I was filling out the thing onto the floor. And I feel like they were like, he's a junkie, go get him. You know, I feel like I was terribly sick that week. And I was going to the bank to deposit to buy cryptocurrency. So like I said, there are so many suspects. I have no idea. So my Bank North in Glastonbury might have not liked me and been involved. Like, there are so many people who could have been involved, but trust me, I'm a very thorough investigative journalist. I have all of the suspects in my head. We just have to remember them all at once, you know. Anyway, so we talk about the bank. Well, we got I was trying to buy cryptocurrency. It was the most suspicious thing ever because it wasn't popular. It was during a big hype cycle too. So like, trust me, somebody had it out. That might have been my dad though. My dad might not want me to buy crypto. So like, he might have been trying to stop me or something. Or like, they legalized weed right after all of this happened too. So like, they might have not wanted me to buy too much weed and were trying to get rid of me. My own parents, like, we don't know exactly. The government might have infiltrated my parents. My dad was hanging out with a lot of military veterans and, you know, government people or whatever. So like, they might have been infiltrating him against QAnon or whatever, but like, you need to understand that I'm not exaggerating at all when I said I wrote for the newspapers around the world every day for years and years and years since I've got out of college. It's a super important fact to all of this, of who I am when you're telling the story. Because one day and by the way, in a drop a long time ago, I forgot to tell you, a long time ago, I always used to tell people that I'm the canary in the coal mine. This is probably how I came cute on 4chan. I said one day they would come for me, which you need to understand. Oh yeah, that was the thing. When I said the guy in the ambulance, remember when I said he gave me a weird smile? A long time ago, in the old QAnon drops, I told everyone that one day I was becoming so powerful on the internet and in the video game. I said one day, and I was writing so many jokes every day. I said one day, and this was years before 2018. I don't even remember. It's somewhere in the archives. I have a copy of all my archives, as much as I could save, but and people around the world do too. So don't worry about that. But I almost forgot what I was gonna say. Hold on, I'm forgetting what I'm gonna say. I just forgot. I have this really short-term form of amnesia. It happens to genius writers. Oh yeah, the author. Yeah. We have all my writing. Oh yeah, I said a long time ago. I said they will come for me, like the Nazi. I said one day they're gonna come for me, and I said, make sure. And I was speaking to my fans because I was already a world famous. Remember when I said I'm a world famous player killer murderer who like is famous for murdering people around the world? I became famous in 2009. Just so you know, I was like I said I covered it earlier about how I was the biggest YouTuber in my college class, but you need to know that in 2009 I became a world famous fire mage, like the most famous fire mage on earth, more or less. So that's who QAnon is to beginning. When you tell the story, you have to begin there. During that time when I was very popular, I told every single one of my viewers and fans, I said, one day, I know you guys love me, and it's just like Jesus Christ. I said, one day, it's not one of you will betray me. I was like, one day they will try to come for me when I tell these jokes. And I was like, you guys got to set up something at the place. And that's why when I went in there, when I was in the ambulance, the guy kind of smiled at me like, Project Mayhem is under control, sir. It was definitely, that's the look he smiled at me. And I think the woman who drove the car, the ambulance, was from my church back in the day, and she was younger than me and had a crush on me or something like. It was either her or someone who looked like her. There was someone there who helped me too. He looked like he was wanted to help me, and I asked him questions, and he helped me handle talking to the other people there. That was weird, but I mean the people who worked there. There was a guy who worked there who was helping me talk to the other people who worked there, like an interpreter. It was interesting. Um, Might have been him. That's what I mean by like I told my fan base years before YouTube was monetized. You need to understand, I told the World of Warcraft fan base this before YouTube was monetized. I was famous on YouTube, but it was before anyone could monetize anything. So every single one of my fans was absolutely genuine, like Fight Club level fans, Project Mayhem level fans, like, and I always told them one day they're going to come for me with my writing or whatever. And that's sort of why. And so that's interesting. Where were we in the timeline, though, of the story? So we can wrap this up. Paul Manafort being arrested. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah. So, oh yeah, I said something during the class. I said something about Galileo, and I was talking about Cosmos. It was like I was paraphrasing Carl Sagan. But what's interesting is that they believed. Let me get this straight. Okay, so at first they believed that the Earth was the absolute center of the universe and the sun went around it. And then they believed that the sun was the absolute center of the universe and the Earth went around it. And then they realized that what galaxies are. So, like, they were wrong twice. And that's why what I said when I quoted it, if you heard it, it sounded wrong, but if you fact checked it, it was out of Cosmos with Carl Sagan. He's a great writer, by the way. He wasn't just an actor like most science actors. He was actually a writer like me. I love Cosmos because he was a writer before he was an actor. Because he wrote the book Cosmos, with his wife. It's extremely well written. Cosmos by Carl Sagan is one of the most well written television shows ever, and I quoted him out of it. Anyway, so to make a long story short, a machine gun's found in the woods. Later court dates that I have, in Hartford court system, they found machine guns in the woods pointed at us, more or less. And but didn't admit it. It was a very small, obscure news story, but trust me, it was like checking the weather before I went there. Oh, okay. There was a guy who either worked there or he was actually a genuine homeless dude who got in my face and was like, "You're the devil. Like, are you the devil?" You know what I mean? And it was interesting. While we were waiting in the courtroom, like at later court dates when they were, I was going through, Nazi re-education camp on, the side. And, It was like an hour course, once a week or something, or twice. I can't remember. Um, and I think it was once. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it was about the court. I did the Rubik's. First of all, I did a Rubik's cube in a matter of minutes. Um, while we were waiting, and so like I had like a few court dates. But remember when I said they got everything lost in the system because the politicians were criminals or something, or the cops. So like it was lost in the mix, and so it was going to take a few. They were trying to find. They were going through the Five Eyes intelligence around the world trying to find the crimes I made. You know what I mean? But like Epstein was, they were actually doing was closing in closer and closer to Jeffrey Epstein. Is really sort of how my take on what happened, why it was getting lost in the paperwork in the courtroom. Eventually, during one of these court cases, I'm standing in the hallway of the court with my dad, who drives me everywhere, You know what I mean? Just because I was like, you gotta come, because you're a suspect. No, there was like a homeless guy who was like yelling at everyone yelling at each person standing in the hallway, like Scared Straight. If he worked there at the court, it was the Scared Straight program. If he was an actual homeless dude, my life was actually in danger. So when he walked up to me, he said, "You're a devil. You're the devil, aren't you? Like a white devil, something like that. Like that's what he was talking about. Like you're the white devil. Like I'm gonna kill you or something like that." And like in my face, and I didn't say one word. But this was like, I think it was either after, or it was after I did a Rubik's Cube while I was waiting there, right? And I was telling my dad about how I taught myself how to do the Rubik's Cube. And the other half of that sentence was, I'm going to get to the bottom of this court case someday. And all of you criminals involved are in major legal jeopardy. It's kind of why I brought the Rubik's Cube and did it. And man, I'm good on the Rubik's Cube. Let me do the Rubik. I'm going to do the Rubik, just so everyone knows this is cool. I'm going to do the Rubik's Cube for the last end of this. While I'm talking, we're going to do the Rubik's. Yeah, I tossed it. While we were standing there in the hallway of court, I tossed the Rubik's Cube to my dad. Mix it up more than that. And I did it in a matter of minutes. Anyway. Oh, here it is. Right? Yeah, a little bit of this. This is a speed cube too. The other one was, Anyway, I taught myself how to do the Rubik's Cube in college, and I wrote an algorithm, a very long algorithm that should be way smaller, but I wrote it in my head and I memorized it, and it's huge. And but it's two really long algorithms to solve any Rubik's Cube. And I actually don't know how to solve the last step. I solve it randomly. And what's interesting is when I was standing there in the court line, I just happened to get a lucky break and solve the Rubik's Cube accidentally. So to accidentally solve the Rubik's Cube very quickly is like better than knowing how to do it. I just want to let you know how much I killed it in there and how quick it was. To accidentally solve the cube is harder than to solve it when you know it perfectly, Because there's trillions and trillions there's more, it's like quadrillions. There's like more things than stars in the galaxy or something. Anyway. So I think it was either before or after I show everybody up with the Rubik's Cube. This guy, this homeless guy walks in front of me. He's yelling at each person in the hall, but he comes to me and he's like, "You're the devil." And he was saying it like I'm the white devil. You know what I mean? And I'm standing there like I didn't even say a word. But you know what's so interesting? he's more and more kind of getting in my face, trying to get me to attack. And then everyone around me standing there for their own court cases that day, they all go, leave him alone. They all said it at the same exact time. They all said, leave him alone. And he walked away and whatever. And then I saw him behind the counter with like Morpheus glasses on. It was either him or it was his brother or all black people looked the same. But he either worked at the court for the Scared Straight program or I was seriously in danger. But I wasn't really in danger because my dad was right behind him and he's a black belt and I'm the son of a black belt. So like, but they could have all killed. You know what I mean? If we get in a fight with a black guy, all of the black people in Hartford are going to kill me, you know? So, like, you know, at the same time. So, like, it doesn't matter if you're a black belt if you're getting attacked by 20 people in a hallway. So, like, it was super dangerous. It was absolutely dangerous. Unless he worked for the Scared Straight program or something. I don't know. But, I didn't say one word to him. And everyone around me... That was the end of the court case for me. If that was organic, every single person around me standing, like the jury, all went, "Leave him alone." He wasn't even really doing anything. He was just yelling at me. I was standing there, sort of looking down. Like, trust me, I don't talk to people, so like, I don't even talk to the homeless guy in my face. I would have said nothing until we got in a physical fist fight, and I would have killed the guy until I was killed. You know what I mean? Like, we were ready. You don't understand how prepared to die I am, and nobody wants that. And I've got to remind you that nobody around me ever really wants that either. And everybody around me, like the jury, went, "Leave him alone. Leave him alone." The court case was over in the hallway. At that moment, I was out of there. The judge watching on the camera was like, "This is over, you guys." And that's the story of QAnon. Shortly later, Jeffrey Epstein would be arrested and then die in jail, even though I think he was in the witness protection program per the President of the United States, Trump. They extradited him back to the island. He's there right now in the island in the witness protection program. That's my theory. Five years later, I leave a message on Jillian Gilchrist's answering machine. I say, "You owe me an apology. And I am QAnon. And I'm going to catch you criminals. No matter how long it takes. If you did this." I don't know if you know me or if you know who did this to me and framed me. But I'm telling you, if you did this, I will catch you someday. And I called the Hartford Police Department 5 years later and said the same thing to them. And that's where we are. And now, 8 years later, I just told the story. Hey, Arthur Fleck, you think you're real funny, huh?